Escape from reality.
Netflix is slowly taking over the world. With the recent acquisition of Monday Night Raw, Netflix is always branching out and trying new things. From originals to acquiring new shows and old classics, to getting rid of your favorite shows and those classics with little to no warning, to being the best example for YouTubers who are trying to sell you a VPN. What started as one of the simplest ways to watch the highest quality of media has now become one of a dozen streaming services that you pay way too much for, and it still doesn't have the goddamn show you want on it. Not too long ago, Netflix acquired a ton of mobile games, as well as games they then ported to mobile, and there are some great games in there, like one of my all-time favorites, Death's Door, which I made a video on. There's Hades, 12 Minutes, Bloons, Braid, Grand Theft Auto 3, and of course, the Queen's Gambit Chess. Honestly, a great move. Once I saw the show, I just knew they had a great marketing opportunity if they made the board game from the show a real game. Great call by them. I thought about perhaps doing a video on all of these, but to be honest, it would be a pain to record, and truthfully, I'm just not all that interested. Some of the reviews suggest they're not very well optimized. Some of them you need controllers for, and ultimately, I just don't think this is for me. I really don't do a lot of mobile gaming anyways. What really brought my attention to Netflix gaming were these browser games on my page. When I do watch Netflix, I generally watch it on my computer, and seeing this games beta thing at the top really interested me. Oxenfree is a game that's been on my list to play probably since it came out, and I just haven't had a chance to play it yet. I'm a massive Romance of the Three Kingdoms fan, and one of these games, The Almost Gone, I actually played on Twitch years ago, having bought it in a bundle, and I was shocked to see it here, and I thought, hey, that could be a possibly good omen for the quality of the rest of these games. At the moment, there's only 10 games while this video is being made, and they aren't exactly small games, well, at least not all of them. My last video was on YouTube Playables, and you'd be hard-pressed to find anything in that library to play for more than a few minutes, but given that Netflix has added some pretty impressive games to their mobile list, one would think that they maybe just went for quality over quantity for the browser games. Or maybe they just went all out with one or two familiar titles and the rest really don't hold up. But the only way we're going to find out is by playing. I want to approach this a little bit differently than I normally do with my videos. Most of these games are available in one way or another. Either you can buy them on their own or you can play them with a Netflix subscription. Some of these games you can't actually play outside of having a Netflix subscription, but what I want to do is determine if these games are worth buying a month's Netflix subscription for, assuming you watch no content and all you want to do is play these games. The answer is yes. Yeah, sorry for the spoilers, but really, Netflix in Canada for 1 month ranges from like $6 to $20. I don't really pay attention, and once I move out, I won't be paying for Netflix, but for now, thanks Dad. And Oxenfree is currently $13 on Steam. Oxenfree has gone on sale for I think as low as $2.30 at some points, but if you don't care about owning the game, just playing Oxenfree is technically enough to get your value back if you're on a lower tier subscription. Still, let's be thorough. We'll be tallying each game by its price on other platforms, if it's on other platforms. And before we do that, well, I have a little bit of a confession to make. As you've already heard me say once, I am Canadian. I know it must be hard to accept someone you're watching could not be from America, but it's actually the truth. As a result, I'll be using Canadian currency out of pure laziness, and if that upsets you, feel free to go back to my tower defense video and join the barrage of people telling me that I spelled defense wrong, because Americans have no concept of anything outside of America. But if the prices seem a little more expensive than what you'd expect, that's why. The Canadian dollar sucks. So there's the catchy title of the video gone, but hey, now we can get to the real video title, which is, I don't know, something like, are Netflix browser games worth playing? And yes, I saw that Ludwig made a video with a similar title, however, I started this before he made that. I didn't watch his version all the way through, and I'm gonna guess that he's probably not going into as much depth as I am. Also, I think he said they were good, and well, I may have some different opinions. One thing I almost never do in videos on my channel is go into development, or rather, developers. I always say that I just want to analyze the final product, what we were given, and try to ignore all the background stuff. It's part of the escaping reality theme of my channel. That being said, because some of these games come from such a wide variety of developers, I thought it would be interesting just to see where these games come from. Go on a little adventure together and see what they were doing before these games and see what they've been doing since. I'll also go ahead and apologize for the quality of recordings. You may notice at times the footage looks blurry or fuzzy or spotty or pixelated, and that's not my fault. My internet connection was solid, I have a decent monitor. That's just what happens with streaming Netflix games for some reason. I don't know if maybe it's an issue with all streaming games. I don't actually stream games, so it's a brand new experience to me, but for whatever reason, sometimes the footage just looked really blotchy and it kind of sucked, but I powered through, so hopefully you can power through with me. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I like to do a lot of games mechanic dissections, sometimes by genre, sometimes by platform. I would guess these games don't have a ton to do with each other, so we're in for a variety pack today, but if you like game mechanic breakdowns and the occasional story dissection, consider subscribing as there's a lot more of that coming in the near future and there's plenty I've already done. And I don't upload very often, and occasionally I get messages saying like, oh, I missed your last video, I didn't see it in my feed, because it's, once a 3 or 4 months, so consider turning on notifications as well. And now that I pretended to be a YouTuber for a little bit, let's dive in together to see if the Netflix browser games are any good. Underwatermelon Fruit Merge. Underwatermelon Fruit Merge is a classic fruit merging game, most likely inspired by that of Suika game, which in itself was taken from a game called Merge Big Watermelon. This game is basically Suika game. You drop fruit, although in this game you're underwater for some reason, and the fruit floats up instead of the traditional dropping down, and you have to merge two in order to get to the next form or the next fruit, and it's just a matter of how many points you can get. This game is a complete ripoff of Suika game. The fruits all have eyes and faces. It basically just changed the fruit, made it upside down, and I guess added an octopus so it wasn't too similar. According to the Netflix credits, this was made by Next Games, which if you Google, it is a studio based in Finland that is literally called Next Games, a Netflix game studio. They have a very impressive looking website touting groundbreaking franchise games by fans for fans. We have the boundless energy, diverse expertise, and fearless creativity to build highly engaging mobile games based on the world's most loved movies and shows. An unwavering focus on fans is at the core of our game development. Underwatermelon Fruit Merge. They have sections about culture, how they have a diverse group of people working, all stuff that I'm very supportive of. They also have a link to a YouTube channel here, which already has 85k subs, which is almost double what I have. So I wonder how they got that many, and oh, here we go. This is the studio that made the Walking Dead No Man's Land mobile game, which according to Google Play has over 10 million downloads. However, the game was acquired by Deca Games, owners of Realm of the Mad God, when Next Games was acquired by Netflix. They didn't bother to delete anything from their YouTube channel, but virtually all of their videos are about No Man's Land, with a few even hitting over 1 million views, featuring commercials with fan favorite character Jesus, and known Scientologist and sister of the most unfortunate member of that 70s show, Alana Masterson. The studio is obviously very proud of the work they did on such a big game. It's in their little statement there that it's games based on popular media, but they've erased all mention of it on their website. If you go to games, the only game they have is, yep, you guessed it, Stranger Things Puzzle Tales. It's a mobile puzzle game, and I guess they couldn't even be bothered to put Underwatermelon game on their list, so that tells you how much they think of it. I know I've barely talked about the game, but there's really nothing to talk about. You see this, you know exactly how it works, you know it's not even remotely an original idea, and there are better versions out there for free that you can play literally just by Googling Watermelon game. If I were to compare this to YouTube playables, it's definitely in this category of, why not add it, just chuck it in. And I can only assume that maybe they asked the studio to quickly develop this and the studio didn't even think it was worth mentioning to put on their website, but it's unfortunately just a very odd choice to put on Netflix if you're trying to have this standard of high quality gaming along with your paid service. The game is not currently listed on Steam, but you can play a version called Watermelon Game by Mom Says I'm Special on Steam, completely for free. Or you can play Big Watermelon by this name I can't pronounce for $1.19, or Melon Madness by Justin Gorley for $1.29, or just Google Watermelon game and play it for free. Rocket. Netflix has this game releasing in 2023 by a developer called TechLab, and I cannot for the life of me find any information or social media handles with this name. They really gave themselves an incredibly unsearchable name, which I think too many people do with their YouTube channels, myself included. I found dozens of game studios, but not one was willing to take the credit for Rocket. I wonder why. The Netflix Game Studio website even has an open roles for jobs tab, and under related studios, there's nothing there. Next Games is even there, although they don't have a logo. Rocket is a very slow game where you control a very slow rocket ship slowly collect star maps in order to find the Star Forge and take over the galaxy. Wait, no, wrong star maps. I think these ones you're just collecting to leave, I guess. The warning for mild violence is very uncalled for, I'll tell you that much. I've seen episodes of Winnie the Pooh more violent than this. If the rocket looks like it's extremely heavy and hard to move, it is. If you're holding right and you want to turn left, it's like a full 2 seconds to stop and start moving again. It feels extremely sluggish, but not necessarily in a fun way, almost like a damn it, how did that not turn faster kind of way. You have to work with momentum a lot, and during these moments where you don't have obstacles, you're just holding a direction for a long time, but even then you feel like you have to be careful so you don't ram into a wall. But the game doesn't really pull a ton of surprises on you. Later on, it introduces lasers and floating, twirling sticks to hit you, and then you'll get a health bar as well as a fuel bar. If you lose health, you have to start all over again. Fuel, I assume you fall so that you lose health and have to start over again, but they are mighty generous with the fuel pickups, so it never happened. At one point, I had this crazy glitch where I just spawned in a bunch of rocks, and then this happened multiple times until I quit out of the game and reloaded it. At first I thought it was some kind of anti-cheat thing that somehow got activated, but I don't know if that makes sense because you can pirate shows, but you'd have to pirate the specific version of the Netflix game, and I'm not sure how you do that, and if there's a way, don't tell me, I don't want to know. Overall, it's just very basic and kind of boring. Truthfully, Flash games have taken this concept and they did it better 20 years ago. There's no reason this really should have been made, and I don't even think you can use the "it's for kids" excuse, because a kid that's good enough to play this game would probably be bored by it. Honestly, a kid who didn't know how to play games might still be a little bored by this. The quality really dropped here a lot too, as I'm sure you can tell by looking. I know some people have issues with normal Netflix and video quality, so I suppose it's nice to see they're being consistent. At this time, Rocket is not available anywhere else to buy, at least not that I could find, so technically that gives it infinite unlimited value, or 0. Depends on how you look at it. Gem Mayhem. Gem Mayhem was developed by Pipeworks Studio, a studio that, according to Wikipedia, in 2022 was bought out by Jagex, the studio most notable for developing RuneScape. They seem to have a pretty prominent list of games they've worked on, such as Night of the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian on the Xbox 360, Dancing with the Stars, Keep Dancing for browser, some less notable stuff like developing Terraria for the Nintendo Switch, co-developing 5 Madden games, co-developing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Oh, would you look at that? Another The Walking Dead game. It is a very solid list of credits, but man, does Gem Mayhem stick out like a sore thumb on this page. But these are all really good, highly touted games and franchises, but when you click on full development on their website, only 2 games pop up: Prominence Poker and Gem Mayhem. Gem Mayhem is an alternate Peggle. Even these cheesy little zoom-ins right away, you can look at this and you see Peggle. Even if you haven't played Peggle, you know this is Peggle. From the top of the map, you shoot a drill, it destroys rocks, and your goal is to get these gems in order to complete the map. You have 3 shots per map, but you can get extra lives or power-ups that can control gusts of winds or pinball flippers or a bot that teleports the drill and then throws it out with similar momentum. You can get upgrades to see where the first bounce will go or have it split off into several smaller drills. It's fine, the physics feel fine, it's a bit confusing to tell what rocks you can crush at first and what you can't. It goes through this far too long of a cutscene thing that even with skipping takes too long to start the next level. Honestly, it just makes me want to play Peggle. I've never played Peggle, and I've never had a desire to play Peggle, but this game makes me want to play Peggle. So far, the Netflix exclusives have really felt like Netflix saw a game and said, I want that, and hired by all accounts an overqualified studio to make their own watered down, not as good version. Even though I didn't think the YouTube playables were very good, they at least had this sense of care behind it. These don't feel good to play, and I wouldn't be shocked if a few people clicked on a few of these games with the intention of playing all of them and barely lasted 5 minutes. The plus side is I think the worst of the worst is over, and things generally get more interesting from here. I couldn't find Gem Mayhem anywhere, but you can just play Peggle for like $7 or for free with EA Play, and the game goes on sale a ton, so let's pencil that in for $7. Story Warriors Fairy Tales. Story Warriors Fairy Tales is developed by Dreams Uncorporated, and while the release year is 2023 on the Netflix site, the trailer for Story Warriors, which is on a YouTube channel called Below the Game Videos, is 9 years old. So I think the release year might specifically mean Netflix, so somehow I just missed that these games were a thing for a whole year. In Story Warriors, you play as Bella, a young girl who is going through various children's stories, and she needs your help to get through. As you go through the stories, there will be various nouns and verbs that you'll need to crouch down and grab to help Bella out and get her through. The stories are things like Alice in Wonderland, but then it combines with Little Red Riding Hood, and then Snow White shows up. It's cute, I guess. Some of the levels don't quite make sense. Like, I knew I had to grab food for this one section, but it wouldn't lean down and get cooked because I had to go down a different level and get cook. At the end of the level, it gives you 1 to 3 somethings, but there's not really a reason as to why. But if you want to do this fast and accurately on your first try or go back and do better, then I guess you have that challenge to try. I don't think I'm crazy for saying that this game is clearly made for younger people, like children, although I could see this being a good game to play if you're perhaps trying to learn English. In the game's defense, none of the puzzles are particularly hard. They all make sense to me. I didn't have a moment where I said, that doesn't work at all. There may be a bit too easy, which leads me to think it's more targeted towards a younger audience, which is also kind of crazy given that we haven't gotten to Oxenfree or Infernax yet, but those games are definitely not intended for a younger audience. There's no thing in the description saying what the intended audience age is, so I don't know if they expect people who are into a game like Infernax to also be into this, or if it's just implied, I don't know. It's hard to have a ton to say, there really isn't that much going on. I think the concept is great, albeit basic. I think as a parent, if you wanted to maybe sit down with your kid and read this like a book, because reading the story is mandatory for this game so you know what to pull up, that could be a really fun thing to do together, and that hypothetical is really the only reason I put this game above some of the others on this list. But as an experience on its own, I don't know, it's kind of like a watered down Scribblenauts. I couldn't find this game anywhere else online despite several articles about the game praising it, so to my knowledge this as of right now is exclusively on Netflix, giving it an unknown value. Link Twin. Link Twin is the first potential co-op game on our list, developed by Amber Studio. Amber Studio's website boasts that they are evolving the science of art and play, and also show off that they won the Best QA and Localization Service Provider Award at the Pocket Gamer Mobile Game Awards 2024. They specialize in anything from full game development, art, live services, and marketing. Games on their Our Recent Games tab include Chomp Champs, which is a Pac-Man game, Secret Neighbor, Gotham Knights, which is a Batman RPG, and while there's no mention of Link Twins on their site, you can see it for a brief moment in their trailer. Notably, this is not a Netflix studio, which we've seen a lot of prior. This seems to be their own thing that they've just bought the rights to. As for the release date of Link Twins, I found a review from back in 2017, so it's not a new game by any means. Link Twins is a game about twins? I don't think twins talk to each other like this, unless, I don't have a twin, so I don't know. Maybe Game of Thrones had an even bigger cultural impact than I was aware of and had hoped for. This is a puzzle game where you control these two people and you have to get them onto the glowing platforms. It's an extremely basic concept that has been done 20 years prior on Flash games, maybe not with controlling two at one time, but even this feels extremely similar. It kind of reminds me of Goof Troop in a way. These games are called Sokoban games. It's a puzzle where you'll have boxes or rocks or something and you need to push things out of the way, and in this case, because there's two characters, you need to make sure one isn't falling off of the map. You have rocks you can push, teleporters, boxes that can appear and disappear with switches. It's very funny because everywhere on the website and reviews, people use words like fresh or innovative, but this feels so familiar to me. It's a really old formula, and while yes, it's well executed and does exactly what it says, it doesn't particularly stand out to me as amazing or incredible. It does as advertised. It's better than I think anything else we've done so far, in that it's an actual puzzle game that has clever mechanics and solutions. Although I swear I've played a game exactly like this before, where you control two things and do this kind of motions. If you know the game that I'm thinking of, please comment below. It is driving me absolutely nuts. You get 1 to 3 stars depending on how many turns it takes you to finish. There's no reason or incentive to do this, but with puzzle games, people always love the challenge of trying to do things in as few turns as possible, so I appreciate the option. There's some sort of story, something about twins and or lovers finding their way back home or being mad at each other. I'm not really sure. This is definitely a game where the story doesn't take focus, and there's a lot of indie games like this where there's some sort of cute or deep puzzle with nothing really going on and people praise it, but we can be honest about it. I'm sure it's okay, but it doesn't stand out. It's not making a list of top stories in games, and it's not something I'm paying attention to after a few minutes, but it's fine for what it is. While this game is better than others and still not something to write home about, mind you, there's something else lurking beneath the surface. Remember when I said that there was a co-op mode? And now that you've seen the gameplay, you know that a co-op mode makes no sense? Well, here's a surprise. Co-op mode is better than normal mode, and is where this game really shines. In co-op mode, there's 2 sets of twins, and their platforms affect the other platforms that the other twins are on. You switch which set of twins you're playing as by pressing T on the keyboard, but you also use different controls for the twins. The original use a WASD, the new twins use the arrow keys. But you still have to switch between them, but you can totally just play this as a single player game, and I actually think it'd be better as a single player game, because it is an absolute mind. There is so much to consider with every single step, switching between 2 sets of twins and trying to get your bearings on who is where, which direction throws someone off, which side needs to be on a switch, which switch gets them the other side of their sets, where the teleporters go. I can see why this isn't the base game, because I'm sure they wanted the games to be approachable for people, and I would assume they're looking at a probably teenage or maybe older audience who exclusively play free games on their phones, or things like Fortnite and Roblox, or maybe they're trying to target an older audience who aren't super into gaming in general. But this version of the game should not have been called co-op, because I think as a co-op game, it would just require too much communication. This should have just been extreme mode or hard mode. And heck, honestly, continue developing this idea, add a 3rd set of twins, and this game would be insane. This concept of controlling the 2 twins has amazing potential to be a really good mind-crunching puzzle game where you have to take a lot of time to just think and analyze every situation and every movement. Similar to a Baba Is You type situation, a game I haven't personally played, but I've heard that it turns into something chaotic very quickly. Given the fact that this game is older than 5 years and the studio doesn't even bother to mention it on their website, leads me to believe there is no hope for a sequel. But someone watching this video right now, it could even be you, yes you, is 100% capable of making the game I just described with 3 triplets or 2 sets of 3 twins. Oh, you could do both. Oh my god. If it is you and you end up making a game like that, you don't owe me any money or anything, but like, shout me out in the credits of your game. It's been a dream of mine to be in video game credits to some capacity, so I will use my influence just to say do that. Overall, the title of the game gave me a pretty good idea of what I was expecting. Actually, initially I thought it was going to be a platformer where you control 2 different people on 2 different screens, but for the most part, I wasn't surprised by what was delivered. The real surprise to me was the co-op mode, which ended up being a mind-blowing and mind-bending puzzle game that legitimately got me excited to play, until I realized I'm really bad at them and then I stopped. You can currently buy Link Twin on Steam for $4.49, although it says there the developer is Lorraine Studio and it was published by Carbon Incubator, and if you click either name there are no results. So maybe there's something shifty going on. Someone's changing names. I have no idea. Infernax. Just a heads up to our friends who may deal with light sensitivity issues, this next game has the occasional flashing lights. It gave me a bit of a headache while playing, so I wanted to give you a heads up. You might want to skip this section or look away until it's over. Thankfully, there are some accessibility options. Thank you, devs. I turned them down along with camera shake, so it isn't too bad, and it can be a lot worse, but I'd rather play on the safe side if you're extremely sensitive to flashing lights and camera shakes. According to Netflix, Infernax was developed by Dotemu, Berserk Studio, and Shipmates, although on the Steam page it just says Berserk Studio. Apparently they developed numerous Flash games before Flash died out. I don't personally recognize any of the games on this list. It seems to be a bit newer age Flash versus what I experienced. I don't even think back in my day I'd ever heard of a company making a Flash game, so that's kind of crazy. According to the website, they are based in Quebec City with 11 employees, and besides Infernax, the game they showcase the most on their website is Just Shapes and Beats, another game that looks to be like some sort of rhythm game, but again, it's just too many flashing lights. I can't play games with flashing lights. This seems to just be their thing. Infernax is a side-scrolling action game, a love letter to the classic games of old that were just before my time, games like Castlevania, stuff like that. You start off moving to the left instead of the right. The game wants you to know right away it's not like other girls. You jump, you duck, you slash, you have buttons for spells and a button for potions, and that's it for the entire game. The controls are really simple, and since I don't have the Netflix controller app, I played on keyboard and it felt fine. The game on the surface may look like just a side-scroller RPG, but it's actually pretty deep. You get XP, which you can use to level up health, mana, or attack power. You've got money to buy better equipment. Different levels have different floors, and if you go left or right on them, you'll go to different areas. It's really easy to get lost. It's not a straightforward thing at all. Combat is very basic since all you can do is slash or slash while crouching or jump up and then press down, and I think that does something. So timing is really everything. The basic enemies aren't really a problem, but there's a lot of boss fights, and those are where most of your challenge will be. Jumping out of the way, ducking, timing your hits at all the right times, that will be the most important thing to get through this game. There is a healthy amount of platforming as well, although sometimes you get really basic stuff, and sometimes it just cranks the difficulty to 100. You've also got spells. I didn't play long enough to get all of them and see what they do, but there's definitely a fair bit of strategy in how you're going to do everything, and I think by the end of the game there's like 5 or 6 spells. The boss fights are pretty frequent. I did quite a few in just the first hour of playing. Again, most of them are just timing, jumping, but I imagine with the addition of spells later on, they probably get more complicated. There are also save points where you can level up your attributes, and if you lose all your lives, you'll respawn at these points with less money and less XP. And of course, you'll have to redo a bunch of stuff all over again. But anytime you exit a screen and come back, all the enemies on that screen respawn, so you can technically use this to grind as much as you want. I spent a good 15 minutes so I could get all the best equipment before I moved on from this first town, and the game even has accessibility options like unlimited jumping or no damage, so you can make the game a lot easier for yourself if you just kind of want to go through things, or you can even just do it temporarily if maybe you're stuck on a boss or you need to get a double jump or you're just sick of dying to the same platforming, because some of it is pretty hard, and if you don't know what's coming, you're just gonna die. One thing I wasn't expecting is that there are sometimes choices that you have to make. Like, for example, this man at the very beginning of the game asks you to kill him because he's suffering, and if you don't, you have to fight a big boss creature that he turns into. But if you do kill him, then someone sees you do it and then they run away. And I didn't play long enough to know what the repercussions were if maybe she says something to somebody, but looking into the game, there seems to be a lot of different endings and ways that you can play it as well. There's a ton of side quests you can do. It can be kind of hard to do them intentionally if you don't have the entire map or layout memorized, and most of them seem optional, but they can get you rewards like gold or XP or items. But unless the quest is close by, sometimes what you really need is just to randomly stumble upon where you're supposed to go. The map isn't really detailed, there's no quest marker or an arrow telling you which direction to go, which 100% feels intentional. It feels like of all the things they wanted to emulate, they really wanted to bring back that NES experience and have the player just get a little lost and frustrated at times. Unfortunately, there's no Nintendo power to help me out here. Visually and audibly, things sound great. They look really good. It's really easy to tell what's a platform, where you can jump, where you can't. Controls are a little bit awkward on keyboard, but that's mostly my fault. I hate using my phone as a controller. It just never feels good or responsive. And I've already mentioned it once, but again, I really appreciate accessibility options to minimize flashing and screen shake, because those things can quickly make the game unplayable for me, so I appreciate that being an option. The visual tone of the game is super dark and gory. There are zombies eating the flesh of killed soldiers, there's whatever this is. Lots of dead bodies, crucified corpses, rotting flesh. The game was definitely intended for an older audience, but also simultaneously it gives you this feeling of nostalgia for when you were a kid, when you were younger. In terms of story, there is stuff going on, a few sentences here and there, nothing I really paid a ton of attention to, nor do I think you need to, but there is something there if you want it. It's very primitive, at least with the bits that I played. The town is under attack, help us with this, help us with this, help us do something with this. There's not a lot of fluff, and the quest direction is really straightforward. Someone will just tell you where to go and who to slice open. The game is simply put a tribute done to the old school side-scrolling RPGs, and it nails everything perfectly in my opinion. It's modern enough that you can enjoy it without having played the OGs of the genre, and there's no stupid little graphical things or dumb glitches where you're taking nonsense damage and you clearly hit something but the monster is just immune for no reason. Nothing that would make the angry video game nerd say a bunch of swear words. Everything is really well done, and this is so awesome for Netflix to acquire this and put this on their list of games for free. If you're a fan of old school side-scrollers, this game was pretty much made for you, and if you already have Netflix and you have the game's beta, then congratulations. Depending on your skill level, you can spend a good 6 to 10 hours playing this game, with some people on howlongtobeat.com clocking in their 100% runs at 19 hours. Especially if you're going for like different endings or all quests, this game has a lot to do, and while it's not technically crazy, at least not the combat, the platforming more so, it feels really good during the entire experience. Infernax has over 1,700 Steam reviews and are currently in the very positive echelon of games, and the game is currently listed for $26.99, making it by a good chunk the most expensive game on this list. I don't know if I personally would pay that much, but I legitimately thought about picking this up at some point if it went on sale just so I could try it with a controller. I also looked at some of the speedruns too. It's not the most optimized thing, but it's kind of cool. Look, if you're looking at the gameplay of this game and you think you would enjoy it, I'm telling you 100% right now, you would. Go try it and have some fun. You deserve it. Reigns. Reigns is a strategy game made by Nerial Limited and published by Devolver Digital, which is a really solid name to have attached to your game. Nerial is a company that found success through their hit game, well, Reigns. And they've managed to release several versions of it, including Reigns Beyond, which is a space version, Reigns Her Majesty, which I guess is set in a different time period, Reigns Game of Thrones, set in the Game of Thrones-averse, and that's the second unintentional reference to that show, bringing it closer to the intentional The Walking Dead reference totals, and Reigns Three Kingdoms, which is not only my favorite setting of all time for my favorite story of all time, but that version is also on Netflix, so we'll cover both. Reigns seems to be wildly popular and has been around for years, and I somehow completely missed the boat. And while I can see why it was so popular, I can also see why people have kind of left it in the past. Reigns is a game where you always have two decisions. You swipe left or swipe right, but instead of a Tinder match, you're deciding the fate of your kingdom. On the top of the screen, you have four icons: the church, the people, the army, and your money/resources. When you go to make a decision, you'll see circles, small or big, above the icons, but you won't know what direction they'll go, if they'll fill the bar or drain it. If an icon is entirely drained, your reign is over. Most of the time it's written in the story that you die, and in roguelike fashion, you start as your successor and kind of take off where you left off, but also start over again at the same time. There are some things that do carry over. There's like an overarching story, or sometimes you'll get these little items at the bottom that will help you out, but that are not exactly clear as to what they do, so sometimes I had them and I just didn't know what they were doing. After a while, you'll realize the pattern very fast. At the beginning, you read everything, you analyze your options, you consider how it'll affect each category, and after about 15 minutes, you'll zoom through everything and just sight read because you pretty much know how everything is going to affect everything else. After that, it's mostly down to these little quests in the bottom right corner, but to get these quests, it's pretty much all RNG. You just have to survive long enough for the game to give it to you. The game isn't so much a deck builder as it is just dealing with whatever cards you're given. Like, for this one, if you need to meet the devil, well, you just have to live long enough until the game lets you meet the devil. Sometimes you'll have things about going in caves, but you don't always get a chance to go into a cave, and then when you go into the cave, you'll probably die in the cave, and then you want to try going back in the cave again so you can get out of the cave, and you just have to wait until you get back in a cave. If you take the blue mushroom, everyone becomes some sort of animal, and I don't know why. Sometimes you'll get told a direct statement, and you just have to answer yes or no, and you'll never really know what you're saying yes or no to. Occasionally the game will also put you in these combat sequences. I don't know if there's any sort of rhyme or reason to it. It might be some kind of pattern to tell which option to pick, or it's some kind of rock, paper, scissors thing, but I genuinely have no idea. As you do combat, it'll also tell you you've unlocked combat related things, but I don't know how that works or if it just comes up randomly. It's not the best explained. The game is basically a journey to stay alive, but if you die, you mostly pick up where you left off and just repeat the process again. One thing that almost all the top Steam reviews have in common, even the positive ones, is that no one's played this game for more than 10 hours. For some people, they see the game, they see it's a tad repetitive, and they decide to play it for a few hours just to see if it changes or if they can reach an ending. For me, I'm really just not built that way. Once I identify the pattern and realize it's not going to deviate from it, it's very hard for me to stay in that. But I'll save my thoughts for later because next up we have Reign Three Kingdoms. Reign Three Kingdoms has a similar core gameplay with a few differences. The game has an overarching story. You appear to be in some sort of lab as a test subject being sent back to the past to relive lives of leaders from the Three Kingdoms era of the ending days of the Han Dynasty in China. Along the way, you'll meet some of the famous Three Kingdoms characters, or maybe more commonly known as Dynasty Warriors characters, such as Liu Bei, Cao Cao, Yuan Shao, and many, many others. Within the story, you're not supposed to remember things from your past, but for an unexplained reason, you do. And occasionally you'll meet other people in the game who are aware that you're just a part of the simulation, or maybe they are as well, and you're not really supposed to talk to each other. So in that sense, there actually is something building, and that seems to be more interesting than anything else going on. I didn't finish the game, and I don't want to spoil it for potential players anyways, but it does seem to be building to something which I really like, because it feels like that was a huge part of what was missing in the first game. You get a chance to join the Yellow Turban Rebellion or go against them in the name of the Empire. I fought against the rebellion because I wanted to team with Guan Yu because he's my boy. But after that, the game naturally seems to follow the pathways of, say, a Dynasty Warriors story mode game where you defeat the rebellion, you make your way to defeat Deng Zhuo, and eventually try to unite all of China under your rule. I didn't play far enough to see this, but I got far enough to see the plotting of Lu Bu's betrayal of Deng Zhuo, so it seems like they have a pretty good semblance of the story, and they're just kind of shoehorning you in there, much like Kingdom Hearts with Disney stories. There are three big differences in Reign's Three Kingdoms compared to the base version. One is your ability to travel. You can't just choose a location and travel, but as you get these quests, you'll be asked if you want to move to a different region. If you do that, then you'll have a new list of quests to do there. If not, then you can stay and try to finish everything in your current region, but it will start to loop around after a little bit. Generally, the game is trying to tell you that quests in other areas will help you advance the overall story, and I guess this way, quests are technically missable if you just don't come back to a region. The point of the game is to kind of have influence or control over all the regions. There's no list of quests in the bottom corner, so it's a little more fluid, but when you die and start over again, it will give you a list of things that it's trying to tell you that it wants you to do. And like the last game, again, you just have to be lucky and be in the right place at the right time. There's no way to set out to do something. You have to wait for the opportunity to come to you. The second difference is that the bars filled either way will kill you. The bars seem to represent resources, civilians, armies, and I think the last one is meant to be virtue, but I'm not entirely sure. Once the bars are filled or depleted, your army or civilians who live under you will kill you for one reason or another. Sometimes they'll even eat you. This definitely makes the balance a lot harder. You'll be in a lot of positions where it's very obvious what the right thing to do is, but if you go too hard in one direction, then your run is over. Conveniently, every time you die, your entire army is willing to hand over all the power to either your cousin, or if you were married, your spouse, or if you had a child, then your child. You can even play as a female and get pregnant yourself and come back as your future kid. It's all RNG, but either way, every time your old crew pretty much follows you blindly, which some people didn't like, but also I get it. It would be kind of a bore to have to restart from the very beginning every single time. The third major change is the combat system. There's an actual combat mode in this game, and it's actually pretty fun. As you make your way through the game, you'll draft an army or deck of 9 troops. Some are just generic like farmer or soldier or scout. Others will be named characters from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms series. It all depends on how you interact with them and if you live long enough to recruit them. During battles, you will have 3 to 5 different troops in them, and in order to attack, you need to rotate your army left or right. Whichever unit ends the rotation at the front of the stack will be the one attacking, and if it has no specific ability, it'll just damage whatever's in front of it based on the value of the cards. If there's no troop in front of it, you do direct damage, and the first person to destroy their opponent's life points wins the duel, creating the ultimate Dynasty Warriors and Yu-Gi-Oh! Collaboration we've all been dreaming of. The first person to go gets 2 points to do moves, after that you get 3 per turn. Tons of cards have tons of different abilities. They can be things like doing damage to neighboring units, damage all units. If you end your turn in the main spot, you get 2 points worth of shield. You can heal your neighboring units. You can cause them to gain strength. There's even a ton of crazy ones like all of your units lose 1 attack, but you get 1 extra point to move units that turn. There's definitely a way that you can build synergy and strategy with your characters. At the start of the battle, you'll get randomly selected units. One will sometimes be you as a character or like a story unit that's attached to the quest, and you get 3 redrafts that are all random. So if you don't like your initial lineup, you can technically get a new one, but again, you risk getting something that you also don't like. Once a unit dies, you can call for reinforcements by rolling over that spot twice, so it takes 2 turns, but you can get another guy from your deck back. And in later games, when you have a stacked roster, or maybe you had a bad initial draft, this could be huge and help you get right back in the battle. The combat is actually pretty fun considering what the game is. It takes a while to get used to, and at the start there really isn't a lot to do or a lot of encounters. Every time you get a potential encounter, the soldier will ask you if you want to do it or if you want them to do it, so I assume that just randomizes it or skips it. There's also options in the menu to make combat easy or just skip it entirely with an auto win, so I guess if you really don't like it, you can skip it, but to me, the combat is kind of the most exciting part of the game and probably the only thing worth doing. Unfortunately, both Reign's games suffer from the same consequences. I just can't be bothered to play until the end because I can't imagine a drastic change as the game progresses. However, the combat system in Three Kingdoms is infinitely more interesting than anything in the original, so if I get bored one day, I could see myself being tempted to go back and just play some of that, especially with that overarching story. I'm curious to see how that turns out. Either way, they're both very similar games, and both are currently available on Steam for $3.89. I think these would both work better on a mobile format. I'm pretty sure they're both on mobile anyways, just because if I'm on a PC, there's already so many other options of games that I could be playing. But on the go, I could see this not being the worst thing to do. Unfortunately, we're judging it based on the PC version, and it's just okay. The Almost Gone. The Almost Gone was developed by Happy Volcano and released by Playdigious in June of 2020. Happy Volcano's website says the 4 key components of their studio is long-lasting fun, unique twist, for everyone, and a gradual learning curve. The only 2 games they have, according to their website, is You Suck at Parking, a cute little game where you try to, I think, stop your car from driving, and The Almost Gone, which is tonally very different. I actually played The Almost Gone on stream last year, and instead of re-recording it, I'm just going to use stream footage, so ignore the little goobers in chat that occasionally pop up, or you can meet them yourselves at twitch.tv/ghostboy259. I'm going to be streaming pretty regularly in 2025, and I might multi-stream on YouTube, so feel free to hang out with us. The Almost Gone has 2 very different things going on within it. One is an incredibly interesting puzzle dynamic involving rotating these little dioramas and clicking around to solve puzzles. The other half is probably one of the darkest, grittiest, and most real stories I've ever played in a game, to the point where they legitimately may have accidentally alienated a part of their audience by making it this way. But I don't necessarily think that was the wrong call. It's just a very unexpected mix, but it actually fits in very well. Sometimes you have legitimate puzzles, stuff like try to find the numbers on a lock. Other times it really is just kind of a click everything and hopefully find what you're looking for moment. And while I much prefer the former because there's a little bit of logic to it, the latter does pop up from time to time, and it can feel a little bit off or frustrating when it does happen. Sometimes you're expecting to solve some sort of grand puzzle, but really you just didn't click the right spot on a tree. The sets are really great and detailed, although I wish you could zoom in so that you could enjoy the details and also just so you could see better. When the puzzles are good, they're really good. They mostly revolve around you finding all the clues you need scattered around, and then those clues will contain some information that will help you move forward. It's hard to go too deep into it without talking about spoilers or breaking down a puzzle specifically, which is something I really don't desire to do in this video because the game is only 2 hours long, and if you can handle the tone of the story, I do think it's worth playing, at least a little bit to see if you like it. What I will say is that the puzzles blend in really well with the story. It's just as important to unravel what's happened here, as well as solving the puzzles. And the game does a great job at making the story feel like a greater mystery to be solved while you work on these smaller ones. It's not to say they're always connected one-to-one or that the puzzles will make sense within the world's lore, but it never feels like you're doing something too crazy or disconnected from the hook. I've covered a few really dark topics on this channel before, games like Sea of Solitude, Death's Door, and most recently Blues and Bullets. I'm definitely not opposed to darker stories. In fact, I kind of vibe with it and I plan on doing more in the future. But so far this video has been about flying rockets, someone who makes words come to life, a mole playing Peggle, and a smiling watermelon. I just don't think it would really fit the tone of this video in particular, and while the next game we're going to talk about definitely has some darker moments, it at least builds up to it, whereas The Almost Gone is extremely heavy right from the start. The story is very, very dark, including intense family trauma, possible murder, lots of death, severe mental health issues, and it's told in a way that there's still people who debate on Reddit and other places on what the story actually is because it's really up for interpretation. There's a lot of information that's told to you, but it's not told to you exactly, and that kind of ends up being the real puzzle. There's a lot of things that are implied and you can kind of figure out the ending, but the ending won't actually give you the answers you want. The game has an intense aura. Even when you get stuck on a puzzle and things maybe feel a bit frustrating, which definitely happens, you always feel like something is gonna pop out or something unexpected will happen. While it's not an experience I overly loved or a story that I think is brilliant, I do think it shows how you can integrate the two in a clever way to tell a bigger story. As for the puzzles themselves, it's hard to talk about because I'm also just really bad at puzzle games, so sometimes the puzzles are very easy and I'm just not smart enough to finish it. To go back to Happy Volcano's 4 key components, long-lasting fun? Well, the game is about 2 to 3 hours long. For everyone? No. I don't think I would let anyone under the age of like 16 play this game, maybe even 18. You might have to do some kind of like background check with family history before you play this game, because this could bring up some very real emotions. Unique twist and gradual learning curve? Sure, I'll give them 50% on this one. Overall, it's an experience, not necessarily a game. You're not going to have fun, and you're going to go through a tidal wave of emotions and feelings, and maybe you might even look into your own relationships a little bit. But I think Netflix has a lot of that within its own media as well, and if Netflix is going to invest in games to bring to the platform, I think experiences over games is exactly where they need to be looking. If you've played it, I think this is the game I'm most interested in hearing people's thoughts about. So leaving a spoiler-free comment or marking it spoiler so no one gets spoiled, I'd love to know what you think. It's currently on Steam for $11.49 Canadian, which I do think is a bit pricey. I got it in a Humble Bundle and I'm pretty sure it'll go on sale again. But if you're looking for a game with engaging visuals, really solid atmospheric sound design, and maybe perhaps the darkest story in a point-and-click puzzle game you've ever experienced, then this is right up your alley. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and I'd like to take a few moments just to plug a few different things I've got going on. They're great ways to support me without directly paying me or giving me money. I've been streaming on Twitch a lot more lately, and I plan to be really consistent this year, generally on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at around 5:30, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time if you'd like to come hang out. We mostly play indie games that you've probably never heard of, so every stream, every game is a brand new experience. And if you aren't able to make it live during those time frames, well, there are 2 other options for you. I have a highlights channel called Reality Escape Plays where I upload highlights twice a week of my streams, so you can catch the vibe there and also watch me play games with some friends every now and then, and we try to do a bunch of different cool things. We're slowly building up our library. And if streams aren't really your vibe, but you're still interested in the games I'm playing, then on my other channel, Ghostboy259, I've been uploading little mini breakdowns and analysis of the same games that I've been streaming, just kind of lazy, using stream footage, writing it all in one day, really quick, simple editing. There isn't a ton there right now, but there's a bunch coming, and there's going to be a lot over the summer, so subscribing and watching over there would be a huge help to me. And if you're so inclined to do so, although I will never insist, and I also understand that I haven't been very consistent lately, so you might be hesitant to, I understand. But if you want to donate directly to me, you can pledge to my Patreon or become a YouTube member. And by becoming a patron or YouTube member, you actually get those second channel videos early. There are 4 or 5 up there right now as of uploading this video. You'll see them sometimes several months before they come out, depending on how I schedule it and what I have time to do. You also get special roles in the Discord, and higher tiers get access to a production diary, where I basically talk about the making of a video, from conception to challenges to real life stuff that maybe interfered with it, anything like that. All the links are at realityescape.ca, so if you're interested in any of that, come check it out. Lastly, I just want to say a huge thank you. I know I've been gone a lot longer than I said I would, and that's like the 3rd or 4th time that it's happened throughout my little YouTube thing here. But this time I really am back, and I am back for good. I'm feeling good. I'm ready to upload consistently and to make as many cool things as I possibly can. So whether you're in the Discord, or you've been commenting on the community posts I've been making, or you hop in a live stream just to say hi, or even you comment on the old videos just to let me know you're still watching them, I really appreciate it. It's been a bit of a personal hell year for me, and I feel like I'm finally coming out on the other side of it all, and I'm ready to work. I'm ready to upload a bunch of stuff and just see where this YouTube stuff fits into my future plans. If it's a hobby, if it's a side hustle, if it's ever going to be a career, which I don't think it will be, but you never know unless you try. So thank you all so much for getting to this point. It really means a lot to me, and there is so much more to come that I am so excited about. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, this video threw a lot of curveballs at me, not only like real life between making this video, but the video itself. So let's dive into that real quick before we get to Oxenfree. Okay, full transparency here, I wrote the majority of this video months ago, back in September, shortly after my last upload, but a bunch of personal stuff happened, and I just had to put videos on hold for a bit. But in the time that it took me to come back to this video to finish it off, Netflix released a few more games. And not only that, they took away some games. Much how like the day after I uploaded the YouTube playables list, like 15 more came out, or how in my Bloons Tower Defense video, multiplayer released the day after my video came out. It's just my luck sometimes. Anyways, in the interest of getting this video out sooner and also not cutting out all the work I had done on the games that have been removed, or redoing this sick chart that you've seen that you're no doubt very impressed by, I'm going to acknowledge all of it here. The reason videos like this are so hard is because things never really stay consistent on these platforms. I'll always have missed a cool new game, or in the case of a video like this in YouTube Playables, the list changes all the time. On May 14th of this year, 2025, Netflix removed the almost gone Infernax, Reigns 3 Kingdoms, and Too Hot to Handle 3, Create Your Character, which I haven't even covered yet because it was added in between the time I wrote the first half of this part and now. These games were literally removed 3 days before the original intended upload of this video. And now we're down to just 9 games, and we haven't even seen some of them yet because I'm about to cover them right now. It really mucks this whole thing up, and as far as I know, there's no given reason by Netflix to remove any of these games. It could be that they only have the rights to them for a limited time, but otherwise it's unfortunate because all of the games were very popular on the platform, and the removal just feels weird considering how much I liked them and how good of a fit they were. But let's get into the 4 newest games, and it's important to note that these are not replacements. These were all on the platform at one time. These were added months ago before the new ones were removed. Too Hot to Handle. Too Hot to Handle seems to be an app that's based off of a British reality dating show. I don't know, this isn't something I've ever heard of, and I think the quality of my life may be worse for this discovery, and if I Google anymore, I'm afraid of who I might become. No judgment if you like it though, we all love some good reality TV garbage every now and then. This is actually not the app, but rather a character creator. The game is free, but it's mobile. No, I'm not covering it, unless this video gets like 1 million likes, and I'm only saying that because it won't happen. I can't say much for the character creator. I will say though, it is extremely thorough. The annoying people who complain about wokeness definitely will not like this. Not that I care about what they think, but in terms of inclusiveness and how specific you can be, I've genuinely not ever seen a game with this many options before. After choosing your traits and interests and star sign, because of course, you can choose body type, you can have vitiligo, you can have top surgery scars, prosthetics, a glucose monitor. At first, I was going to do the classic YouTuber thing where I made a very goofy, unrealistic person, and instead, I accidentally made the coolest guy I've ever seen in my entire life, but still probably wouldn't approach at a party. And look, he totally fits in with everyone else on the beach. But this isn't a game, so 0 out of 10, on to the next one. Centipede Recharged is the classic game Centipede, and this version is developed by Atom Vision Studios and Sneaky Box and published by Atari. Appropriate. I mean, it's Centipede, but nicer looking and cool power-ups. You control the little guy, you shoot the things, you try not to get hit, or you lose, see how many points you can get, or how long you can live. There just isn't a ton to say about it. You can actually do co-op if you and a friend use your phones as controllers, which Seems kind of cool, but it is a browser game, so I guess you'd have to be sitting around the computer to do that. But otherwise, it's just a cool way to play a very basic old classic game. In the outro for this video, which you haven't seen yet, but I've already recorded most of it, I talk a bit about why I think they should lean into story-heavy games more, as well as retro games or retro-style games that older folks can play and get back into gaming, and I think this is a perfect example of that. I think there's probably a guy in his 40s or 50s who wants to reminisce about the old games and probably saw this and thought, hey, that's pretty cool, and got to relive some childhood memories for a bit. This game is also on Steam, and it is $13.29, making it the second most expensive game on this list. Seriously, for that price, you could get Vampire Survivors twice and still have enough to go to the 99-cent store and pick something else up. And for some reason, it costs a little bit more than our next game, which is very similar. Caverns of Mars Recharged, again published by Atari and developed by just Sneaky Box this time, is again the game Caverns of Mars, but recharged. There's a bit more gameplay variety to this one. You are a ship falling down to the bottom and you just need to not get hit. Your life is on the left, your energy is on the right. You pick up power-ups and upgrades for your ship as you fall, and when you hit the end of the level, you can choose a permanent upgrade that normally has some sort of downside to it. The game has a fisheye lens effect where it makes it look like the game is scrolling with a curve, but it quite literally gave me a headache instantly upon looking at it, and thankfully there is an option to turn it off, but by then, for me personally, it was too late. Again, it's another classic game from the 80s that I really like the addition of. It's simple and sweet, and someone out there is going to relive some childhood memories playing it, and I think that's a huge benefit of having this kind of game on Netflix. On Steam, the game is $12.99, which, much like Centipede, seems like a bit much. There's actually quite a few games in the Recharged series, so I am curious if more will be added in the future if the feedback on these is positive, although in my opinions I would have just added Asteroids and Breakout first, just for name familiarity, but that might just be me. The last game in this little intermission here is Cozy Grove Camp Spirit, developed by Spry Fox, whose website says they make happiness. They want to make the world a happier place and are using games to do it. Why don't more game studios do this? This seems like a good strategy. Interestingly enough, they have a blog post on their site that mentions Spry Fox is becoming the 6th in-house game studio for Netflix, and they go on to say that they'll have much more support and resources to make games bigger and better. So while this will be the last time we hear from them in this video, maybe one day we'll have to do a follow-up. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I do not understand this game, even remotely. And I tried, I really did. I try to give all the games I play a chance, and I never have encountered a game like this where I really just did not get it. You play as a spirit scout and you go to this place with talking campfires and there's a large bear, and it seems the core gameplay is walking around, clicking things, gathering items, and then handing them in. And as far as I can see, that's it. I might be missing a ton, and maybe I never got out of the tutorial, I don't know. I really tried with this one, but I felt like as I was reading every word, my brain simply would not comprehend what was going on, and it, for the life of me, just could not retain my attention. I apologize to the devs and fans of the game, because there definitely are fans of this game, but I really have no idea what's going on. The game seems to be free with a Netflix membership on mobile as well. I couldn't find it anywhere else for any other price. Sorry again, I try not to do this with games. I try to be fair and give them all a chance. I could not have possibly imagined that the game Cozy Grove Camp Spirit was the game that pushed me to my limit. So those are the new games, minus Too Hot to Handle Character Creator, which is already gone. And now we'll head to the main event in Oxenfree. And then after that we'll do the outro, but I'll add little bits in to make it more relevant. Alright. Bye. Oxenfree. Oxenfree was developed by Night School Studio and released in 2016, and the studio was acquired by Netflix entirely in 2021, releasing Oxenfree 2 in 2023. Oxenfree 2 is the first game on Steam to have the published by Netflix title, and based on the success of these two games, I think there's going to be more on the way. Although with recent developments, it may be on a bit of a rocky start. I'm going to split this section into two parts. The first, I'll talk about mechanics and premise. The second, we're going to do a full story dissection. I'm sure you can see by the length of this video, this part is significantly longer than every other part. The second half is going to have full spoilers. I'll talk about my playthrough specifically. I didn't have enough time to go through the game multiple times, so I know some people really don't like the analysis of, well, this is my version of events, but that's all I had time for, so I hope you understand. The scene on screen right now is the first of the game, so nothing's been spoiled, but keep in mind this first section may have minor spoilers because just visually you might be able to tell what's going on. My recommendation to you is that if you have not played Oxenfree, you should 100% do so. It takes about 4 hours. If you have Netflix, it's free and you can play it right now. It's often on sale on Steam as well, but just keep in mind it's hard not to spoil stuff even in the pre-spoiler section just because the visuals alone are great at telling a story. Oxenfree is a teen coming-of-age story, a classic when it comes to these conversation-heavy focused games. One of the founders of Night School Studio was actually a developer for Telltale, so they have a lot of experience in these comic book choose-your-own dialogue type games. I think games like Oxenfree and Until Dawn and The Quarry and Life is Strange tend to focus their stories around teenagers because the whole point of the game is that dialogue choices carry the weight of the experience, and I think with teenagers they're just naive enough where you can make really bad decisions and it's easy to justify every option. You play as Alex, followed by Ren and her new stepbrother Jonas on their way to Edward's Island for a weekend party filled with hijinks and unforgettable memories. And on the island they meet up with Clarissa and Nona. You can control Alex by either using the arrow keys, WASD, or just clicking where you want her to go, and besides that, there are only two mechanics in this game. The first being dialogue. When someone says something to you, you will generally have 2 to 3 options. They are color-coded, which may have you believe that one is tied to an emotion of sort, but truthfully, they are purely for appearance and nothing else. One of the developers even commented this on a Reddit AMA and said, quote, "Initially we wanted to make each bubble be color-coded to some sort of emotional spectrum, but quickly realized that our game's dialogue needed to be more dynamic than the usual good, bad, middle-of-the-road approach. So we actually veered pretty heavily away from it to make sure the players don't get the feeling that there are right or wrong answers to anything." End quote. And honestly, this is something I think anyone and everyone who are creating games with multiple dialogue choices should read. The dialogue may feel a bit weird at first, and also at times. When talking, some dialogue will start to fade, and if you don't click something in time, Alex remains silent, which is a valid way to play. Silence is an option. But when you do say something, sometimes the game will cut off the current dialogue and sometimes it'll wait until the person is done talking, which really makes you want to wait until the very last second to say something, but sometimes you just miss the mark entirely and end up saying nothing. There's also the fact that sometimes two dialogues can be playing over each other at once, like when you go to certain areas, it'll trigger certain conversations, but you can click things and start other ones while the first one is still going on. It doesn't happen all the time, but maybe more than you'd like. There's also plenty of times where you and another character will be engaged in a dialogue while walking, which is really good. It's nice that they don't make you stop and wait for dialogue, that you can do it while moving. But again, you start to fear that things will overlap, or that if you go to the next screen that the conversation will just get cut off entirely. So oftentimes I found myself just standing still while the conversation played out and waiting, and then walking in complete silence because I didn't want to miss anything, rather than there simply being something preventing you from going to the next screen mid-dialogue. Or maybe there is, I don't know, I was too scared to try. Walking itself is a bit slow. I don't expect every sequence to be filled with talking, but I do kind of wish it was, if only for the reason that these are teenagers and that's kind of what they do. They're not really the type to walk in silence when there's tension. I'd rather have to wait at the end of my destination for a conversation to finish versus walking in silence. and even without that, the walking speed is just slow enough where sometimes you get a little impatient. You go downstairs pretty slowly, which, makes sense, but sometimes you'll be waiting for upwards of 30 seconds just to get to where you want to be, and there's not a lot to do or look at or hear in the meantime. The voice acting and dialogue is all really good. God knows there's been enough conversations online following Forspoken about how younger characters talk in games when faced with supernatural situations, but I think this game fits it perfectly. There's enough concern and focus with the characters, but also that teenage desire to diffuse tension with jokes and also have just really awful bad timing when trying to start a serious conversation. The other mechanic in this game is the radio. It's just a simple dial that goes back and forth, and you have to listen to certain cues in order to make certain things happen. I can't get into it until the spoiler territory. It's easy enough to figure out, but it may be hard for people who have limited hearing. I do, but it wasn't an issue for me. But sometimes the colors on the dial also change when you're in the right area, so there's 2 frames of reference, and the numbers don't change, so if for some reason you really get stuck or you're not sure, you can always look online and find the right frequency. The radio puzzles are very rarely a remember this number and tune into it, but more of a just go back and forth until you get it right, and the way the puzzles are designed, you can truly just go back and forth slowly until something happens and you'll still get by. The radios are also used to deliver a lot of extra side lore, and there's some collectible stuff that you can do later on, and that's really where the radio comes into play. The visuals are really, really great. A majority of the game takes place at night, so there's only so many things they can do with how things look, but they do a great job at just making it really nice to look at. The characters pop really nicely. I've noticed they've continued to use this style with their other games too, and I hope that's something they continue because it feels like this company now, and I want them to keep making more stuff so I can play it. The soundtrack is really great too. However, my 2 biggest issues with this game actually come from these 2 points, the visual and the audio, although it's very possible that the developer is not at fault for either of these issues. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, playing games on Netflix is just blurry and fuzzy, and occasionally it gets really annoying, and I assume that could just be the product of streaming a game. I've never streamed a game before, so maybe this is just how it is with internet connection or something, I don't know. It's just really annoying knowing that there's a full version that looks crystal clear, but it costs money and I have this version for free, like they're taunting me. I don't think that's anything the developer did, however. The other thing is that there's no sound options. You can't turn down just the music, and while most of the time the music is more atmospheric than melodic, as someone with a hearing loss, I sometimes have difficulty hearing dialogue over music, and I had to solely rely on subtitles. Obviously, I'm glad the subtitles are there, but it would just be nice to tune down the music just a little bit. That's a very vague description of Oxenfree because mechanically it's very simple. But I do want to dissect parts of the story because I think the writing is really great, and I want to do more story dissection stuff on my channel. I actually rewrote this entire section because it basically turned into a long plot summary, but I go so in depth with things that I kind of do need to run through the plot in order for it to make sense and have context, so there is a little bit of that. But otherwise, I'm leaving out a lot of details, so even if you want to play this game on your own and you're still going to watch this, there will still be enough for you to get a full enjoyment out of it, in my opinion. But this next entire very long section is just a very large breakdown and analysis of Oxenfree, so here is your spoiler warning, and you can look at the timestamp or the chapters to skip ahead to the end of the video. The protagonist Alex, her best friend Ren, and her new stepbrother Jonas are headed to Edwards Island for a night of late-night hijinks, filled with unforgettable memories and young romance and boys like girls playing in the background. Every year before graduating high school, kids come to have one all-night rager on Edwards Island, and it's only known to have one permanent resident, an elderly lady by the name of Maggie Adler. And now it mainly just stages a small little gift shop, a little street, some beaches, and a bunch of abandoned military buildings. There's also a lot of memorials around the island where a bunch of Navy members lost their lives in a horrific accident during the war. I like the play of the dynamics right away between both the characters and the setting. Ren is clearly someone you've known for a long time, and he's more than willing to tell you how he thinks you should be acting or behaving. Whereas Jonas is a complete blank slate. You two barely know each other, and so you as the player get to discover the group dynamic along with him. He's there to ask all the questions that you would probably have. As for the setting, it's got a lot of freedom and a lot of mystery. It's enough for teenagers to go wild and crazy and make a bunch of poor life decisions, which is exactly what you want in a game like this. There's a conversation which, depending on how it goes, reveals that Alex's brother Michael has passed away and Jonas's mother has also passed away. And there's a bit of awkwardness as Jonas pulls Alex aside just to say, hey, you know, thanks for being so cool with everything and your mom marrying my dad. So there's a little bit of effort on his behalf to become friends, but we're very obviously at the very first stages of it. These two barely know each other. Ren immediately tries to pry in on the conversation, and this is the first sign we see of him being really controlling as a friend. We'll find out quick that Ren lives in a very idealized world, furthered by the fact that he brings up that Alex might attend college away from their hometown, and he kind of begins to guilt trip her with things like, oh, I just hope if you're leaving it's for the right reasons, and oh, you're my friend, I'll miss you so much. Jonas feels off-put by this too a little bit, and they seem to realize that he does, meaning they either have these little squabbles between them either very rarely, or it's like so common that they never have done it in front of someone else, and they don't realize just how it looks from the outside until someone has a reaction to it. Ren also asks Alex to be cool around Nona, a girl we're about to meet up with, since he plans on asking her out that night, which pretty much squashes all idea of romantic notion between Alex and Ren. The idea of them being together in any romantic shape or form is never brought up again except for one quick game of F, Marry, Kill, which you don't even really have to feed into that. And I really would like to see more platonic intergender relationships in games that are not old guy with young daughter-like figure, so I approve of this tremendously. Our trio meets up with Nona and Clarissa, and due to a party the week prior, no one else is coming to the island. Clarissa does not like any of us. She's really only friends with Nona, but she has a strong dislike of Alex. Clarissa has already decided she isn't going to have any fun tonight, but Ren keeps trying to force the issue, and again, it all circles back to Ren and his control issues. He is such a dreamer, and he has such a version of events planned out in his head about how the night is gonna go, and it's already crumbling in front of his eyes. He wants to ask out the girl of his dreams, have his best friend at his side who definitely won't leave for college, have a huge party on the beach, and be the cool guy for organizing it all. And you can tell he's trying to hold on to all of that, despite the fact that nothing has worked out the way he's liked so far, and we're barely 10 minutes in. On the beach, Clarissa reveals that Maggie Adler, the only person who lives on this island, died 3 days ago. So the kids are completely alone on this island. Naturally, they play a game of truth or slap, where you can ask someone a question, they answer truthfully or dishonestly, and you get to slap them if you can prove they lied. It's all very cliche, but again, it works, because they're teenagers. And the attendance of this party went from 20, 30, maybe 100 plus to like 5 people. They have no internet, and let's be real, no one decides to play these games with innocent intentions. It's all about finding some sort of information. Clarissa decides to control the game immediately, asking Ren if he has a crush on Nona or not. And since Jonas is kind of not really playing, you can rat him out or keep it on the down low. Be nice to your homie. Your relationship with Ren, and the others for that matter to a lesser extent, are all things that evolve over time in this game. Rather than a telltale, they'll remember that, or an immediate, they liked this or didn't like this, the game is quietly keeping tabs on everything, and this will ultimately lead to one of several endings that you can get, and certain scenes unlock depending on where your friendship is with these characters. The game is only 4 hours long, and it doesn't have like multiple episodes, so since it's a lot shorter, it's a lot easier to have more branching pathways by the end because you don't need to think about tomorrow. After a game of Marry, Screw, Kill, in which I said I would kill Ren because I've been thinking about doing that since we started this game, you can ask someone in the group something. I asked Clarissa if she liked anyone, ooh, and she said no. And then she responded by asking Alex why her parents got divorced, which is, you know, slightly disproportionate in response, to which Alex reveals things fell apart after her brother died.
You got a new brother, pretty exciting. I'm sure Jonas is excited, or maybe excited isn't the right word. Maybe a little overwhelmed with just everything, you know? Unsure? It's a lot to take in and adjust to.
Is there like a question coming or what?
I'm just saying what Jonas is already thinking. That statistics show if you get divorced once, you're probably gonna get divorced again. And the fact is, your mom divorced your dad. So let's put his mind at ease and hear why.
Okay, just get to whatever point this is getting to.
The point is, why'd your parents get a divorce? Just so Jonas can hear it from you.
Clarissa, I don't really care why they got a divorce. Just
You know why. Michael died, and it broke everything, and they couldn't handle it. The end.
Well, now you know, Jonas. Don't die and everything will be fine.
Okay, Clarissa,
What?
You know, guys, honestly, I think I'm pretty much ready to do anything else besides this game.
Wait, let's not stop like this. We should,
Game's over, Ren. I won. And to celebrate, I'm gonna sit on the beach and drink, and maybe, if I'm feeling spicy, even take a nap.
Maybe we could
And that's exactly what Nona's gonna do too.
Man, what is your problem, Clarissa? Just what did I do to make you act like I ate the last piece of chocolate cake on your flippin' birthday?
Nothing, Alex. You did absolutely nothing. Cheese! If you guys in your scavenger hunt or playing Ring Around the Rosie happen to find anything more interesting than a slowly dying starfish, you be sure to just let me know.
Super.
Whatever.
After that lovely exchange with everyone being in such a great mood, the party splits and we get a chance to talk to Nona, who says, hey, do me a favor, tell Ren I'm not interested. Good for her, honestly. Which will certainly lift his spirits, and then we head to a cave entrance with Ren and Jonas. Here's another big reveal, and again we're thankful to Jonas for being here and asking, since Alex and Ren obviously both know this information already, but Clarissa and Alex's brother Mike used to date. This obviously adds an extremely uncomfortable vibe to the night, but also I'm glad this was stated now and not in a weird forced way where Alex says, hello Clarissa, who used to date my now deceased brother, something like that. Let things get really toxic before the newcomer asks. It also makes me wonder if Alex asking Clarissa, do you like anyone, had any further connotations, like Alex checking in on a, hey, how are you doing these days? But there are so many options, that's just the one I happen to pick, so it might not be as much of a hidden nugget as much as maybe just an oversight. I just feel like Clarissa maybe would have had a bigger reaction. Ren says that at the entrance of this cave there are certain radio frequencies, and if you hit them, weird things happen. But this being a fictional game about a bunch of teens stranded on an island, surely nothing can go wrong. Oh, god damn it. Jonas goes off running after the light in the cave. Ren reveals that he's had a very special brownie that's taken him out of commission for a bit. So we follow Jonas into a cave opening with a floating triangle at the top. Using the radio, very regular triangle radio activities occur.
Hello.
Sleepy. Time. Yeah. Everything.
Fine.
Holding.
There.
Same.
Don't know.
If. Leave. Is possible.
This is insane.
I don't know what...
Listen. Bobtail.
Shade.
Tail.
Sleepy. Time. Yeah. Is.
Leave.
Possible.
I don't know what you mean, so I can't...
Bobtail.
Leave. Children. Bye.
Others will see
And
you
soon.
Alex!
Jonas!
We wake up with Jonas on a different part of the island, conveniently at the base of a communications tower, and so up we go, where Jonas picks the lock and the phone rings. It's Ren. He's somewhere lost in the woods and is freaking out and asking us to come get him, when Clarissa calls and more or less says the same thing. At this point, we get to choose who we go after first, the first major choice of the game. The girl that used to date our dead brother and hates our guts more than anything for no apparent reason, or our childhood best friend Ren. The answer could not have been more obvious. I went for Clarissa. Here we have a good view of the map. It's nothing crazy, but it can be a little tricky to figure out where you can get from where, and where you can walk and can't walk. and walking can take a very long time in this game, so it's best to try to figure out where you want to go on your first go around. We arrive at Fort Milner, we hear Clarissa over the loudspeaker, and we also learn that the radio can open certain locks by using certain frequencies. Jonas does the thing again where he asks what the viewer is probably thinking and wonders why Michael and Clarissa were even together in the first place, since everything he's heard about Mike implies that he's a pretty nice guy.
Just what would a guy like that see in her? Like, at least at the start. There must have been something, right?
It's not a trick question, Jonas. She's been the homecoming queen every year since she grew boobs. And he'd been the captain of every sports team he'd ever played on. It was practically an arranged marriage.
Huh. Okay. It's just interesting, I guess, to me.
What's your type? Blonde, right? Nose ring?
No. Tall, brunette, maybe a big hat, red raincoat, lots of mystique, been around the world.
You're
Somebody
describing
like
Carmen
that.
Sandiego.
Oh yeah. You know, that kind of explains a lot.
The lovely thing with Mike is that there's just so much to explore with his relationship between Alex and Clarissa. All we have is their words on it, and we have their words on their relationships with the other, but we don't necessarily know what things were actually like. Mike can't really be here to verify. We don't know if someone is maybe wearing rose-tinted glasses, or maybe there's a little bit of jealousy between the two, so, oh, maybe he never really liked Clarissa, or, oh, he's so tired of his annoying little sister. We're just taking the words from it from two people who probably miss him the most, and they also don't like each other. Alex and Clarissa don't necessarily make it a competition of who misses him more, but they definitely have that in common, and it's 100% at this point the cause of this rift between them. Jonas sees Clarissa run into a room and follows her, only to get locked in, and Clarissa is nowhere to be found. We find a light switch that restores power to the base, but as we walk by the mirror, it begins to talk to us. Now normally I'd tell you how the reflection is saying, "Let Jonas talk to his dead mom," but I'm too distracted by the fact that it says username on the screen. I looked around. If you play on Steam, I think it does actually show your username in some versions. In other versions, it shows nothing. I don't know why it would show anything in this case, let alone this version, or why it would say username, but it took me completely out of the scene in a very confused and funny way. I'm just glad it didn't say like Netflix. It mostly just makes me wonder what build version they're using of the game, and if there are multiple, and if this game contains everything, or if it will get updated to remove stuff like this. I don't really know. We free Jonas, tell him about the reflection, take a mirror pic for the gram, which reveals a dark figure standing behind us, but we only see it in the loading screen between rooms. The characters just never mention it for some reason. In the next room, there's a really long scene of Jonas taking a whiz, and I don't know why it's so long, but I think it's funny, so I fully approve of it being so long. And then we see Clarissa run into the next room, and chasing her, we find a chalkboard, and when we use the radio to summon a radio program, it begins to quiz us. Basically on things we've learned throughout the game, like what's the name of the building, and how many sailors died in the submarine explosion. I don't know what happens if you get the answers wrong. I got one wrong, but based on the hangman, I think you can get all three wrong and be fine. As far as I know, there's no consequences to this whatsoever, but at the time when you're first playing, you don't know that, and so you're a little scared. Jonas decides to be possessed and quote a movie called In Which We Serve from 1942 about a British Navy ship in the World War that sinks, which obviously I didn't know that while playing. I looked it up. But in case anyone has watched and memorized Richard Attenborough's filmography from start to finish, maybe you'll pick up on that and give you a good idea of what we're dealing with. Jonas does some Dua Lipa levitating, we do some triangle magic to bring him back, and it's unclear how much he really remembers from the entire experience, but ultimately we find Clarissa, and thankfully nothing weird happens from there.
Clarissa?
Oh my god, you actually came. I mean, it did take you long enough, but still, good.
Yeah, no, this is like a low frequency thing. It's just meant for the base. It won't... I don't think it can beam out.
Really?
No, isn't there a way
These
to...
officers who know your problems full and well will give you a friendly and sympathetic hearing.
Who is that?
Cross your fingers.
Some things... I don't know.
Clarissa! Is there anything like... Can we cut her down? Clarissa? I would have swore she was in here.
We get introduced to these spinning tape machines and we have to spin them around, and once we do that, Clarissa appears at the windowsill and promptly jumps. But when we get to the bottom, Clarissa is nowhere to be found. Alex and Jonas decide, well, that's enough of that, and they head their way over to Ren. Again, these can be done in either order, but seeing as how Clarissa doesn't join you for Ren's section, I'll go ahead and tell you the same thing goes the other way. If you get Ren first, he doesn't join you here, so you're not missing anything, which I kind of like. Although it would be kind of cool and encourage multiple playthroughs if he was there, but I can see why they wouldn't want to do that. Jonas and Alex find a bridge ferry that no longer works, but we head into a nearby station and find a switch, which Jonas really wants to be the one to flip it in case something bad happens, but I had Alex do it because I think she's cool and tough. And then all the power shuts off and the radio begins to play a song.
That's... God, I haven't heard this in forever. This is something my mom used to... I am so tired of this funhouse bullcrap.
As we exit and make our way to the ferry, we see a chair out front that just wasn't there before. I have a sit. Very important. Our next scene is at a campsite, but when we try to walk by it, we loop back in time, restarting the conversation. Although Jonas is now different.
You used to come here a lot as a kid, right? To the island. I mean...
Do you ever get deja vu? I feel like didn't we just walk through here?
Huh. That's funny, I don't think we have. Okay, yeah, tonight's like being trapped in a nightmare zoo, but I don't know, you have memories here, right? Jumping off the diving board with little Janie and eating ice cream with little Franklin.
Whose life are you talking about right now?
All I'm saying is, before tonight, this was a pretty cool place. And you did stuff here, and it's a part of you, you know? It's a part of you. And I just wouldn't want our first night out to, you know, wreck all of that. For like forever. I just wouldn't
Jonas, you are completely insane, my god. You know that? Nuts, kid. Yeah, nuts.
All right. But I'm right.
I swear to God, Link Twins, and now this, Netflix, you've got some explaining to do. When we get to the end, we hit the loop again, but this time Jonas is OG Jonas, and he acknowledges that we're in a loop. This is the first time he can actually sense something's going on. We also see a soccer ball, and when Alex kicks it, it comes back to her, and the radio says, fetch. On our next loop, we lose Jonas entirely, but this time our reflection in the water starts talking to us, and it presents us with 3 different options, all upside down and on the screen for too short of a time for us to really realize what's going on. The voice will say something about Michael and Clarissa being together, and boom, we're in a loop again. Jonas is back with more memory this time, and we find another tape player that ends the loop, and another large shadow figure that goes completely ignored by the characters. On our way to where Ren is, we run into Nona, who is less than thrilled to see us.
Okay, just don't move, okay? Don't come anywhere near me.
Nona.
Just don't.
Nona, come on, it's us. You can see it's us, it's me and Jonas.
This night has turned banana bread really fast, and I'm seeing things and forgetting things, and I bumped into you once already, and it was horrible, so...
What are you talking about? Back at the beach?
I'm talking about the Alex I saw at the pier. After the cave looked like the freaking 4th of July, and I lost track of everybody.
Nona, believe me, that wasn't us.
I don't know that yet. So, just look. You're not going to talk about my grandfather. You're just going to stand there, politely, and tell me if you've seen Clarissa.
Nona has already seen some version of Alex and Jonas earlier, and she seems smart enough to realize that we could potentially not be that version of Alex and Jonas, or that version was not the real ones. It's very confusing, and it's brought up one more time, but it's never expanded upon. We're never really given a clear answer. I think the game is trying to make this similar to us seeing Clarissa, perhaps implying the Clarissa we saw was not the real one. But if you do the reverse order of this, then you see Nona first before you see Ren, and then you go to the Clarissa section. So it's really coming out of nowhere if this is the first thing you encounter. Nona has had this entire complete separate set of experiences from everyone else, and unfortunately, in terms of importance to the story and character relationships to Alex, Nona just takes a backseat. She's not nearly as fleshed out as everyone else, and you never really get to learn more about what she saw. Either way, Nona heads off to the comm tower. Alex gives a lesson on the history of the island to Jonas, who in turn feels a bit insecure, like Alex thinks that he's not smart enough to appreciate the history of the island. Through this in the electric box, we start to figure out that Jonas is really trying to play this role of protector, like he's trying to make this really good first impression. And while Alex clearly doesn't really need it, Jonas isn't trying to hide this from her either. He's very open with his insecurity, and Alex appreciates that honesty and appreciates Jonas. Him and Ren basically want the same things. It's just that Ren wants this friendship to be a very specific thing, and Jonas just wants the friendship to work out in any way he can. We find Ren, who is, for the record, inside a nice little lit up cabin with a desk for activities and electricity and books, and if you go get him second, he will tear a strip off of you for not going to see him first. And then we enter a time loop almost immediately. Jonas brings up that Alex can sense the loops and not him, and I don't know if this is meant to imply something bigger, like there's something special about Alex, or that it's like a cheeky little dialogue thing about the game itself and Alex being the main character, but Ren is just standing there, kinda. Ugh. I don't like looking at him like this. The game does a really good job at keeping you on high alert here. I can't speak for players who chose Ren first, but since I went to Clarissa first, you're pretty much expecting anything crazy to happen. And honestly, in my opinion, the stuff that happens with Clarissa is much more wild and intense, and I'm kind of glad I played it that way just because it sets up the expectations a lot more. But I also don't like Ren all that much, so someone who played differently may have different opinions. If you like Ren, maybe this one hits a little bit more, I don't know. Either way, the Ren section doesn't really feel the same as the Clarissa section. It's really not as long, it's like 1/3 the length, and I think it just works better second, because technically the campfire area and the Nona conversation are all supposed to be a part of the Ren section, but it kind of feels like 3 small sections instead of 1 big one. Anyways, we use the tape player again, which solidifies this as like the time loop breaker. Ren has a moment. God, you're such an attention seeker, man. Anyways, bye Jonas. Okay, fine, let's talk.
Feels stretched.
Better.
No.
Were you in Ren?
Ren. Kid.
Home. For voice. Sometimes.
But.
Do not be scared. You are dolls. Would never plot.
Hurt.
You. Won't
Hurt. You.
Can you help us? We're stuck here and we just want to go home.
Home. Kamina.
We will go home. All of us. Leave.
Possible.
Maybe? But I don't really...
Grounded.
By
Adler. The Margaret. Pretty.
little.
Poppy.
Peggy Adler. That old woman? What does she have to do with anything?
That
Old woman was young once. We were
young. Once.
sit
Still.
bare fruit.
Tag.
Holy mother of God. You guys.
God, Ren.
You're alive.
I am.
Well, why was that a question at first?
Why? Why is this? Why? Actually, thanks for coming, by the way.
Sure.
Why is this happening?
Sorry I played that whole clip, it was easier than explaining. Anyways, Red is alive and the gang chat up some theories about what just happened. The leading theory is that it's ghosts. Ren also reveals that there's a literal shortcut from where he was right to the comm tower, but he was too afraid to go on his own. Awesome. Okay, so this next section is a little bit weird. There's a lot of idle chatter in this game, and sometimes it kind of adds up to a bigger story, and sometimes it doesn't really go anywhere. But in terms of like character analysis, this is probably my favorite part of the whole game. I'm just not sure if it's meant to be something more than what it is, but I think it does a fantastic job at developing the characters. Plenty of games have idle chatter. I think about the first time I played Dragon Age Origins, how cool it was that all of your followers will have mini conversations with each other. But like Dragon Age, this game always takes a chance to show you a little bit more of each character's personality with each conversation. Ren is a little bit too excited to reveal stuff about Alex to Jonas, saying things like, "Oh, I can't believe you didn't tell the story yet," even though they've known each other for like a day. Alex is more confused than anything as to why Ren is feeling the need to tell these stories, and Jonas is this disappointed voice of reason, showing that he doesn't really like the fact that Alex is making sacrifices for Ren, and he also just doesn't like Ren in general. Jonas has this maturity that Ren does not have in this situation. Of course, we've seen Jonas be both vulnerable and at least try to be brave, and so far all we've seen of Ren is that he's a bit cowardly and more focused on his own survival than others. The story goes that Ren was in a band, and Alex had already missed an important test once already because it took place shortly after the death of her brother. And on the only day she could have retaken that test, she decided to skip it and help deliver an amp to Ren to save his live performance. Ren says the test was really easy and Alex should have been able to do it with her eyes closed, but because they're such good friends, she just opted to be there for him and help him out and be a true homie. Wink wink, nudge nudge, Jonas, look at the history that we have that you two don't have. Alex can justify the experience by saying it cheered her up when she really needed it, or she can agree that she shouldn't have done it and that she regrets it, maybe a little bit of both, and this is a point of contention with Ren. Alex is confused as to why he's bringing up the story at all, but to him it's this play in a battle between him and Jonas, a battle that is only happening in his head. Jonas obviously feels like she should have taken the test, and when my Alex initially showed regret at her choice, Ren reminds her, this is such a great memory for us and our friendship. But ultimately, I did have Alex say it was the best thing for her at the time, and even just the smug way Ren says,
"Well, I don't regret it. Not really. Ren did a good show, and Mindy got drunk, and it was funny, and the test wouldn't have made me laugh, so..."
Amen.
Alright.
You can tell it's a victory for him. Again, a victory in a battle that isn't happening. Really great dialogue, it shows off all of the characters' personalities and interrelationships well. Ren is trying to have stories and adventures that sound better in hindsight than they do in the present moment. And Jonas is already becoming a little protective of Alex for reasons we'll find out later, and so while he's not super mad and he doesn't really fall for Ren's taunt, this is the second time Ren shows blatant disregard for Alex's future, the first being his guilt trip at the mere mention of her going to college elsewhere. Ren doesn't just have a blatant disregard for the future, he also has one for the present as he reveals he ate yet another magical brownie as we reunite with the gang, minus Clarissa. For the record, I know the magic brownie isn't like LSD or some weird bell sprout dancing across the screen kind of magic brownie. And I'm sure there's a few people watching this right now that are like, I could do the same and I'd be fine. It would probably help me keep calm in this situation. But I'll remind you that everything we've seen about Ren so far suggests that he's very insecure and maybe not the best decision maker, and that he takes things a little too far. And also, everyone in this story is in high school. And Alex specifically mentions last time not going so well. So he's probably not a seasoned vet at this stuff. Where it's helping the situation, it's probably making it much worse. Anyway, after reuniting, Ren and Jonas start to bicker, going from strangers to enemies, but we're still a way off from lovers just yet.
My sister Allie worked at the parks office in town. She had to deliver that old woman her mail every day. I know that they have the key.
Okay, so...
No, we are not. We are not gonna go with the plan. The first plan put forth by the group's resident Burnout.
Hey, come on.
Well, and I'm not saying it's the best plan, but what other plan is there really, Jonas?
Oh, I don't know. Fix the radio, find Clarissa, set fire to the mug shop. And these are just off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm still worried about Clarissa.
But we don't know where Clarissa is.
I'm not saying literally do that, I'm just... There's other things we can do.
But there isn't.
Ren, understand it is completely your fault that we're in this to begin with.
What?
And now you want us to trust you when things are really bad?
Come on, Jonas, this is nobody's fault. Ghosts are never anybody's fault, certainly not ours.
Yeah, guys, this isn't really productive.
It should be obvious to even the cheap seats that you're the only new weirdo who throws this whole social harmony thing we got going on out of whack. I mean, we all grew up with each other.
I adore this line from Ren because it shows just how delusional he is in this situation. He's trying to make it sound like a young adult teen sitcom or even one of those shows I grew up watching on the Family Channel where everyone was chill and they were friends and they grew up together and they were the gang until this new kid showed up and threw everyone's relationships out of whack. In reality, Clarissa and Alex don't like each other. Nona and Alex seem to barely know the other exists. Ren has a crush on Nona and can't stand Clarissa. Nona does not have a crush on Ren, and Ren seems to have this urge to control Alex, the only one there that's his friend, into being his ideal TV show friend, and actively hates anything that potentially threatens that. There was no gang. Even the best of friends in this group already have some tension. Unless, of course, your Alex doesn't stand up for herself. But hey, I'm not judging you. It's your Alex. Do whatever you want, whatever. Have fun. Do it. Make your own choices, whatever. I don't know if Ren is well liked in the Oxenfree community. I intentionally didn't look around because I didn't want any other opinions swaying mine, causing me to pull back a bit. But I have known people like Ren in real life, and I personally find them insufferable. And you don't realize just how much space you have to breathe once they're gone until they're actually gone, oftentimes when they found someone else to be the center of their affection. Ren is like that one friend at a party who wants Instagram pictures of the whole night, but he doesn't want you to look or smile at the camera. Everything needs to look natural and just the right amount of imperfect so it looks like they're taken in the moment, but he's still sculpting them out and framing everything perfectly. He's still desperately trying to make this night into a coming-of-age teen movie where at the end they can say, wow, this was the best night of my life, and I'll remember it forever. And of course, the irony is that he's in the middle of one of those stories right now, but he's way too irrational in his thinking to realize it. And everything he wants in his story, he's not getting. Instead of becoming a hero and stepping up, he's becoming my personal villain. Ren gets annoyed when Jonas asks to talk to Alex alone. He immediately asks what they talked about. He gets upset when she implies that she might go to school somewhere else, reveals stories that aren't really his to reveal and are completely irrelevant, and when he tries to step up and be protective, it comes off as way more controlling than anything.
Okay, Ren, just take a step back, all right? Jonas isn't a weirdo. He's a good guy.
What? Your good guy is like deploying a missile barrage of insanity on me right now. The stories I heard about this guy, he's a maniac, okay? He's gonna trash our only legitimate means of getting out of here if you buy into this crap.
Legitimate means? What are we even talking about?
Okay, you're arguing 15 things at once now. Do the plan, trust Jonas, leave Ren, pick a target, or, better yet, just don't.
Yeah.
Look, I don't care what Caveman Jonas says. There is a boat at Maggie Adler's house, and the key to her house is back on Main Street.
And the backup plan for when this thing fails spectacularly is two of us have to stay here by the semi-functioning walkie-talkie.
Fine by me. Alex has the radio. Are you okay to go into town? Not that you wouldn't be.
Yeah, it's not like, I'm fine. Whatever, I'm ready.
You shouldn't go alone. We don't need 3 of us up here.
Yeah, I'll totally go. It's my, brilliant idea or whatever.
Are you kidding? Your food is gonna start kicking in any second. Beyond that, you're a completely unreliable basket case.
I am not a basket case.
Just shut up, both of you.
Sorry.
Okay, keeping in mind who you've been able to depend on the whole night.
Yes, keeping in mind who you're tired of.
Keeping in mind who's taller, who do you want coming with you?
Jonas, let's go.
Ah, thank you.
What? First you let me sweat it out for 2 hours in the woods to go gallivanting around with this guy, and now you're still picking him over me? Him?
Ren, you ate another brownie. What do you expect me to do?
I expect you to, care. I expect you to think, hey, maybe Ren needs some support. Just fine, whatever. Have fun, you two.
This isn't fun. That's the point.
Oh, God. Will you just shut up?
Okay, before things get stupid again, good luck with the whole key thing. We'll be waiting, guys.
I'll be honest with you, Jonas was the easiest choice of my life. It felt like one of those cross the river riddles where if I leave Nona with Jonas, it's kind of weird because they barely know each other. And if I leave Ren and Jonas together, Jonas might eat Ren. So just taking Jonas with me made the most sense. Plus, we've been building up all this rapport with Jonas anyways, and I don't know, I think I'm doing a favor with Ren, giving him time alone with Nona. Now, it does kind of suck because this is another major choice in the game, and depending on who you choose, you get a little character building cutscene, a little heart-to-heart, and this is the only chance you really have of getting any sort of meaningful development out of Nona. I picked Jonas, so he talks about that thing that Ren tried to gotcha him with earlier, when Ren said, "This guy's a maniac," and Jonas reveals his tragic backstory. His mom was sick and dying, a kid threw a baseball at him, he lost it, he beat the kid up, and got sent to juvenile detention. And while he got out and saw his mom again, according to him, he never squared things off with his mom, and it's a big unresolved issue for him. And now we kind of know why he's been so protective of Alex this entire time. This is his new family, and he doesn't want to let them down. He can't possibly fathom the idea of going home to his dad and saying, well, that didn't work. He also knows what it's like to fail, to make the wrong choices, to get behind in life, and he doesn't want to see Alex do that to herself, especially for someone like Ren, who by all accounts has been antagonizing Jonas all night for no real reason, and in that turn, it pisses off Jonas. Jonas is really only just reciprocating the anger that Ren is giving him. But if you don't take Jonas, you don't get this conversation, which means that all of the character and relationship development that you two have throughout the first half of the game, which really should lead up to this moment, could just not happen. And I think that's kind of a shame. Now, you may notice I'm harping on Ren a lot, and that's mostly because besides Clarissa, who is obviously trying so hard to be evil that she's straight up a movie villain for kids, Ren is the most flawed and thus the most interesting character to talk about. Jonas is kind of a blank slate. We don't know anything about him because he doesn't want us to, and he's not very imposing, but from now on at this point with this information, we can kind of begin to solve the puzzle of his life. We can see why he takes the actions he does. He's a guy with a shady past, and he's looking for redemption. And of course, we've been hanging out with him for the past 2 hours, so we're more than likely going to give him that redemption he's looking for. Also, he's like our new brother or whatever, so we're kind of stuck with him. I do wonder if Ren had been with you the whole time, or if you knew more about the original story of him and Alex becoming friends, or if you got to experience more of Ren when he's not in a state of trying to fix things that are falling apart at the seams, if maybe I'd like him more too, if maybe Ren is being extremely out of character in this whole situation. I realize a lot of this video has just been me bullying this teenager, and let's be honest, Ren is catastrophizing on like 4 different levels. And we would all be that guy if we were in the same shoes. And I know we would all be that guy because you're all watching a video that a guy made about Netflix video games. So don't even try to tell me you wouldn't be that guy. If you invite Nona, she tries to initiate a friendship with Alex. It's their first and only interaction one-on-one. She invites Alex to her birthday party, which is in a few days. She's trying to branch out because she doesn't have Clarissa weighing her down and being the friend who makes all the decisions. She's still clearly very shy and unsure of her relationships with all the others, but she realizes that she likes Alex and she wants to make an effort. It's the most character building part of her for the entire game, and I completely missed it, and I would bet that most others did too. It actually took me a while to find out what happened if you take Ren, because out of the dozen Oxenfree playthroughs I watched online, not a single person chose Ren to go with them. I had to dig deep and keep looking, and I finally found this streamer who chose him, so thank you for being literally the only one. But unlike the other two, at least in this playthrough, it could be something went wrong or something didn't pop up, he doesn't say anything. He really just says, that guy sucks, and Alex says, hey, cut him some slack, and that's the whole conversation. There's no deep character revealing moment, which I suppose makes sense because Alex and Ren have been friends for years, but it's a shame that if you choose to stay loyal to Ren, you don't really get rewarded for that. I genuinely think that Jonas is still the best choice here because not only do we get his backstory, but we also learn something about Ren during this moment, which in my opinion is the most heinous thing that he does this entire game. Ren knew stuff about Jonas. He knew he was in trouble for a violent crime, and he said nothing. He waited until the moment he thought he could use it as an attack to make himself look better, which is pretty consistent with Ren's character. If he legitimately thought that Jonas was a violent maniac, he should have said something sooner. You could even say, oh, he was just scouting him out. But even then, after getting to know Jonas for a while, after we just rescued him with Jonas, he still decides to try to use this against him. Also, in not picking him, Ren is legitimately devastated because he was so confident that Alex would pick him because of their past together. But every indication of the present suggests that he was not the right pick for the job. We get to Main Street and Clarissa is back, just hanging out, doing some possessed stuff. They go say some vague things and then she falls from the street lamp and suddenly it's Clarissa again, but like actually. She remembers Fort Milner. Alex and Jonas try to explain that there have been some time disturbances, and before the conversation gets too far, we're teleported to this alternate reality where they're playing Truth or Slap, but now they're on Main Street.
Look, when we went into the cave, we found a thing, and I used the radio to somehow tune it in, and I think it jump-started everything.
I see.
I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry.
Jonas, now you're seeing who you're stuck to until graduation.
Clarissa, seriously, I can vouch for this. This isn't her fault.
It has to be her fault. Of course it's her fault. There's no other way this story goes.
Okay, Clarissa, come on. I said I was sorry. You don't have to pile on.
Pile on?
No, come on, Clarissa. Let's not do this right
You're
now.
gonna learn, Jonas. I swear to God. The town looks at her like she has a red letter tattooed on her freaking forehead. And the giant, lit up Christmas tree reason why is that Michael is dead because of her. Because of her.
It would take a very sick person to see it that way, and I would love to hear the explanation.
Michael was gonna leave town. He was free. He was out of here until this one convinced him to take her swimming for one last God knows what. And he drowned. He drowned in Horn Lake while this one could barely flap.
You weren't there. No one was there, so how the hell would you know?
Everyone knows. Everyone knows the freak sister who let her brother die while she clung scared to the bow-line.
Okay, enough, seriously. Clarissa, this is so... I can't even believe we're talking about this right now.
Jonas, just don't think of me like...
I won't. But right now we're gonna break into that office and we're gonna find the key. And we're going to go home.
No.
No, what do you mean no?
All the Oxenfree.
So let's... Wait, what? Wasn't Clarissa with us like 2 seconds ago?
Despite Jonas defending us in this scene, after we snap back, he seems to be the Jonas from before that little spectacle. So as far as I'm aware, he and no one else is aware that Clarissa feels this way. Everyone was there and talking, but no one really remembers. This is purely for the player's benefit only. And I'm sure someone will want to have a discussion about like rules and how these hauntings work and limitations, but honestly, I genuinely don't care. The ghosts are trying to play with Alex's head. They choose Alex because she had the radio, and it's working. Alex is messed up. We break into the gift shop, which by the way we're in because we're looking for keys to get to Maggie Adler's place because she might have a boat. And inside we find a radio with a much larger range, which allows us to unlock certain locks with certain signals. And we also find a note from Maggie Adler, the old lady who passed away a few days ago. And she says that the island and its history is a lie. There's a secret truth that she's discovered that people don't want revealed. And instead of just telling us, she's scattered 12 little notes all around the island, and it's up to us to find them so that we can uncover the truth. Except we don't have to. This is the collectibles portion, and Jonas even gives us this nifty little line about it.
Please do not get glassy eyes over this, okay? We do not have to dig up some old lady's recycling. We can just go home.
I like the game, and I like playing the game, but the walking is far too slow for me to want to do this. I found one note by accident. I was pretty content with that. As we're walking back, we're suddenly walking on the island with Michael and Clarissa. It's like a flashback, except Alex is fully aware of what's happening. Michael and Alex made plans to hang out for the day, but Michael accidentally made plans with Clarissa on the same day, so Clarissa asked if it was okay for the three of them to hang out. Clarissa is really nice and sweet, and Michael leaves her a bit, and Clarissa thanks Alex for letting her tag along.
So...
Do you... Well, I guess you don't remember anything, right?
What am I meant to remember? I'm sorry, did I forget something? I'm bad.
Forget it. It's all right.
I'm glad we could all do stuff today. I'm glad you were cool with it. I mean, I know you guys are really close, and like, I know it can be annoying when somebody starts keeping all their time for their girlfriend or whatever. So, I think it would be cool if we could, like, continue to do things together.
Yeah, I totally understand. And yeah, let's do stuff, you know.
Cool. Michael, he loves you, like, a lot. I'm sure you know that, but he talks about you all the time. Oh, Alex did this, and Alex let the frogs out in science class. Isn't she hilarious?
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah, of course.
The thing is, we really don't have any indication if this is what Clarissa was really like before Mike's death, or if this day even really happened, but at the same time, Alex never says anything to the contrary. When Clarissa leaves you two alone, Michael asks what you think about Clarissa, and you can tell him how you feel. I told him to stick with it, and he's very thankful to have your blessings. What's funny is that Clarissa and Michael's relationship gets downplayed quite a bit throughout this story. Initially, it's they sorta dated, and then it was they dated for like 2 years, but we can see here that the relationship is a lot more serious than anyone else really wants to admit. This is some of the saddest parts of the game because it shows the relationship with Alex and Clarissa wasn't necessarily the best, but it was starting to flourish. They both had a mutual love of Mike, and when Mike died, it tore apart any hope that they had of being friends. Clarissa blames Alex now. She feels betrayed, but at one point, she was actively trying to get along. We snap back to reality, and Jonas mentions that we've been acting super weird for like 10 minutes, which I adore, and I also hate because it reminds me of the part in Life is Strange as well, near the end, where like there's another version of Alex who is walking with Jonas, and now that Alex has memories of that time, and it was noticeable enough that Jonas recognized that when Alex was back. So now what was Alex like during that time? Like, is there an alternate universe where Alex has like the memories of that time? Is there 2 alternate universes now where like one Alex was there and one Alex was in the flashback, you know? And then like if Alex was going crazy that whole time and not really doing much of anything, Jonas was like, yeah, sure, we'll just keep going, I guess. Like what was happening? We get to the gate, which definitely doesn't take 4 minutes to open, and if you see anything that implies that it took me 4 minutes to open, it's lying to you. Everything is lying to you. It's the ghost trying to trick you. I got this first try right away. We get to Maggie Adler's Oceanside property, and bam, Clarissa is inside, just hanging out. She said she got in through a window, which Alex insists there isn't even a window that can be opened that way. The phone doesn't work, so that's no good, but we find out Maggie has quite a collection of maps and graphs about the island and the stars, which tracks with what we know about her and the burying secrets everywhere on the island. We get a chance to talk to everyone for a little bit. Jonas checks in, asks how you're doing. Nona tells me not to tell Ren that she's not interested, implying she might be a little bit interested. And Alex can have a quick confrontation with Clarissa. I had Alex say that Michael's death wasn't her fault, which was kind of confusing because the last encounter we had with Clarissa was at the fire on Main Street. But we don't really know how much she remembers because we don't talk about it. So on Main Street, she said she remembers Fort Milner, but we don't even know if she remembers Main Street, so she might not remember anything. The game always keeps things vague with Clarissa, and I like that because you're not really sure if it's her sometimes, or you're always a little bit worried she's gonna do or say something mean, whether it's the ghosts or just her naturally unsavory demeanor towards Alex. At this point, we start to see all the relationships with characters start to play out. If for some reason you're watching this section and you haven't played Oxenfree, minor spoilers, but this is the type of game where at the end you have players with like statuses, much like a lot of these choice making games. I don't really know how or what you have to do to make Nona interested in Ren, but apparently I made the right choices to do so that she came around. I think leaving them alone in the tower is one, and I think not selling him out during the truth or slap game is another, but I think there has to be more than that. In this scene, we also face the worst thing possible, the consequences of my actions. Ren is not happy that Alex didn't pick him to go to Main Street. He's hurt, and he lets you know his piece before ending the conversation. But if you're still on good terms with Ren, this conversation won't happen, And depending on where the relationship with Ren and Nona is, you can tell Ren that it's Nona's birthday coming up, because instead of Nona saying, oh, don't bother telling him I'm not interested anymore, she'll just say something else because she's not interested at that point. So it seems like there's extra ways to get there. In the underground theater room, we find a code to unlock a chest in the attic, and on our way back, we hear Nona and Clarissa chatting. Nona says she was worried about Clarissa. Clarissa says that she saw Nona earlier and that she owed her something. So Nona and Clarissa have now both seen members of the group that weren't actually members of the group, or they were members of the group, but the memories are fuzzy. But Ren never states seeing anything like that, and Alex and Jonas maybe, because we don't know anything about Clarissa, if anything was real or not. But after this point, it's never brought up again for the rest of the game. The ghosts don't like show up and be like, hey, by the way, everything was an illusion or something like that. So make your own interpretation, I guess. Inside the chest is a note from Maggie Adler. Tune into the source, along with a map of the caves that we explored at the very beginning of the game. We also grab the boat keys and prepare to leave when the ghost of Christmas Past shows up in the form of Clarissa, and all our friends are passed out in various spots in the house.
Stop. Just stop whatever this is. Can't you? Just fix my friends. Please.
Your friends are as fine as they've ever been, okay? There's nothing to bleed over.
You signed up for this, Alexandra. In the caverns, you tuned in to our signal. So please, I cannot bear your excuses, offspring.
I wish I hadn't tuned into that stupid thing, okay? If I knew what it was gonna do you really think I would have even brought this radio?
Shh. It's okay. Everything will be fine. The test is easy. We will speak of something we see in the house, and you will go and find it.
It's quiz time. The ghosts want to test your knowledge of the house. She'll say something like, oh, I spy radiation, and you just have to know where at the house the TV is and click it in less than 10 seconds, or your friend gets absolutely Thanos'd. Thanos'd? I've never seen the movies. This is really unexpected and adds a great sense of panic. This is the first time in the game that you're put into something with such a strict timer. Except that's not true, is it? Because the game's dialogue is on a timer as well, so the game has almost been slowly, subtly training you for this very moment.
I spy with my little eye a picture of a memory. Be fast.
The picture of I guess it's Maggie Adler and somebody. Is this it?
Yes, very nice. That's Margaret Adler and her friend Anna. See, you and your schoolyard chums are experiencing, well, this has sort of happened before. Maggie and Anna tried to sport with us many years ago, and, well, only one survived. And in the process, we discovered a way for us to return, so to speak.
It just takes a little time. And a far-reaching tolerance for the ignorant.
Wait, what? What happened to Anna?
Let's leave it at the poor girl didn't know what she was
Playing with, it doesn't matter. They're not an eternal recurrence. The waves. It's the waves, we think. And we will use those waves to absorb into your friends as sunlight blooms into flowers.
And we will grow. And we will engulf.
God, Clarissa is just so dramatic. Anyways, so the house is in this limbo state and we need to spin the tape machines to get out of it, but when we walk by the kitchen, we get more options, much like when our reflection was talking to us. Michael should go to school, don't influence Michael, or Michael should go out on his own. But before we can really process that, the gang is back. Nona is very sick, sorry, my bad, and Clarissa is gone yet again. At this point, the group comes to the conclusion that the ghosts are the ones from the lives lost on the submarine, which we've been hearing about piece by piece all game up until we actually confront the ghosts. I think to most people it's pretty obvious, but the game makes a point of not having the characters guess it or say anything out loud, like, it's the ghost from the submarine. I was actually a little bit surprised on my playthrough, only because I was thought and maybe hoping that Michael could be one of the ghosts, and maybe like Jonas's mom, and like everyone had a ghost in their past that for some reason were on this island, and that the whole sunken thing was just a bait, but it's not. They're the ghosts from the boat. We go back to the underground theater and dig up some old slides that Maggie Adler had lying around.
Awesome. Oh man, if this turns out to be just prehistoric home videos.
Yeah.
I'm sure this is...
It's sweet. They're learning.
Boo!
Okay, alright, we get it.
I don't know why I love this little section so much. They're all teenagers, and you can tell they're kind of just playing around, trying to keep things light because they've all been pretty traumatized over the last few hours. They're not really dismissing the gravity of the situation, but they're all trying to make each other lighten up a little bit, and Ren booing the picture is genuinely the funniest thing he's done all night. They find a bomb shelter and find that the bomb shelter leads into the initial cave. They also find that Maggie has done research on the floating triangles, and according to her research, in order to fix these tears, one has to go inside the tear and tune into the source from the other side. The last slide shows how to open up the bomb shelter. You need to go to another station that we actually saw earlier, but we couldn't get in, and that'll send a signal to the bomb shelter to unlock.
Alex and me will head through the woods, do the, call part. You and Ren can hang by the door to the bomb shelter and open it when it's ready.
Wait, I'm sorry, I kind of zoned out there for a second. What are we doing?
Ren and Nona are team, Soaring Eagle, and you and I are Awesome Squad.
I want that one.
And we're splitting up to work on some old-fangled machinery to open the bomb shelter, to get into the cave, to yada yada yada, save our lives or whatever.
Shout out to the devs for this option. More games need a oops I zoned out and I'm having problems processing and retaining information button. Unfortunately, this is where the game hits a little bit of a downswing because we have to do a pretty significant amount of walking, which is the worst part about this game. And we're already at what feels like the climax of the story. The mystery is kind of solved, and so we're in this weird section where the game doesn't exactly know what it wants to do, besides give you an opportunity to grab all the collectibles. Like I said, I grabbed one completely by accident since I walked down to the beach right after just to see what was up. When I talked to a few people who had played this game, the pacing was the thing that came up the most with this story. Obviously, you can't get a sense of the pacing from just me talking about it, but here is where the pacing is probably the biggest issue because it's walk and then story and then walk and then story and then walk and then story. And you just kind of want things to progress faster because it just feels like we're at that point now where we're like, not necessarily ready for it to be done, but we're ready to know what happens. As we start to head the right direction, Alex gets temporarily possessed and gets a vivid vision of Ren drowning. It really freaks her out, and what's cool is that you can just walk on your merry way or actually go to the shelter to see Ren just to make sure everything's fine, let him know what happened. Or like me, you were gonna walk on your merry way and then walked the wrong way and accidentally met up with Ren anyways. Of course, Alex has lost her brother to drowning, so it's going to hit her extra hard, and I'm guessing they picked Ren because it's both her oldest friend and it couldn't have been Jonas since Jonas was with us. The only issue, while I obviously don't want Ren to drown, is he's the character I'm least attached to, so if your Alex has been trashing Ren the whole night like mine, it's a little funny, but it still works. As I mentioned, this next session goes back and forth between walking and talking, and there's still some conversations. This line by Alex here is such a thing that people would have said in the 2010s. You have no idea.
I just wish I felt like the ghosts were concerned that their plan won't work. I just feel like they're pretty confident.
Yeah, well, you know who else was confident? Hitler. And look how he ended up. Dead. With syphilis.
Oh, true.
So we continue walking along and
Jesus, what are you doing jumping across that? There's like another way down here.
Look, Jonas, I do like 1,000,000 jumping jacks a day. This is nothing.
Oh, I didn't realize. Sorry.
I didn't mean to do any of that. I thought if I clicked, she would just like go all the way around the long way. Man, this caught me off guard though in the funniest way. We start to get caught in more loops, and this is where things start to take a crazy, cool, and dark turn. Again, story-wise, we're in the climax with just little bits of walking in between. Things are intense, and the villains are now talking to us directly, and we want to know more.
Ren! Nona, what happened? What's wrong with Ren?
Ren, he had an accident. He died. I couldn't.
No, come on. Clarissa was dead too, but like bunny ears dead, not dead, because apparently killing yourself doesn't actually do anything here.
Alex!
I'm sorry, Nona. I didn't mean anything.
What happened?
He drowned. He took a fall. I don't know. He just stopped.
I mean, does it really matter what happened? Either way, done is done.
I know you're not Jonas, so there's no use in pretending.
Soon it won't be a pretense. It'll be an absolute. Alex, we know you're in charge and we know your plan, and we also know that your plan won't work. It never does. So we have a proposition for you. A deal. A bargain, really.
A proposition? Like what?
It's already over with Clarissa. She's gone. We'll pilot her through the rest of existence, and there's nothing you can do to change that. But if you agree to let us take her, let her go, quietly, without fuss. You won't slaughter the rest of your friends, like young Reginald here.
No way! I'm saving everyone! Everyone is coming home with me. We're all getting out of here.
Courage is not always the way, dear.
As we're spinning the tape players, Nona is there confessing that she now likes the now dead Ren, which I guess if anything gives us an insight onto how Nona really feels. Again, Nona and Ren end up being fine. They never mention any of this, so it's not them actually being there. You can also choose to hide the proposition from everyone or tell everyone. I told Jonas, and Jonas brings up the fact that he doesn't think they would bargain if they thought they were going to win, which is honestly an interesting perspective I didn't consider. The proposition itself is quite interesting. I would be really shocked if people actually chose to sacrifice Clarissa like that, unless it's a replay and you just want to know what happens. Because despite the fact that she's super awful to you, we've now seen the backstory and we know the trauma and we know why she doesn't like us. It's because we both loved the same person who is now dead. But like I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this section, Alex and the gang are kids. You could easily justify making that decision based on her age and immaturity. Clarissa keeps giving you hell, why not save everyone else and just be done with her? Who cares? Anyway, Ren and Nona chime into the loudspeaker that I guess just broadcasts all over the island, and we basically get a Ren and Nona radio show for a little bit. They just talk knowing that we can't respond, and they are hardcore flirting. We did it, boys. We get inside and manage to get direct communication with Ren. We have an option to tell them about the deal, and I love the fact that you can just hide it, which I feel like you're more likely to hide it if you're considering it. I was open and honest about it. It's nice that they give you this option. Sometimes I feel like games want to save it for the big reveal. Like the ghost will be talking to the kids and then they'll be like, OMG, what? You were going to sacrifice Clarissa? And Alex was like, OMG, no, I was never going to do it. And they're all like, OMG, but you didn't tell us about it. And she's like, OMG, I didn't know. Anyway, I like that you can just, I lost track of where that bit was going. On the way back, we get more chats with Ghost Mike. He's just being a big brother, and he's upset that Alex and her best friend, who is about to move away, got in trouble. And Mike says, per Alex's advice, he's gonna go steady with Clarissa. He's gonna commit and make it a serious relationship. Michael also talks about wanting to leave the city they live in. He feels the pressure from people to succeed in a small town, and he kind of wants to leave and start fresh. When we wake up, we're thankfully very close to the shelter, and when we approach Ren and Nona, Ren cannot contain himself and immediately announces that him and Nona are now dating. Nona already tries to downplay the whole situation, and Nona, you deserve so much better, but congratulations, I guess. Ren also takes the time to have a heart-to-heart with Alex, at least my Alex. He says something between us broke, where our friendship is no longer what it was, and he says we're not acting like us. Which is honestly totally plausible. We don't know what Alex was like before we took over and became Alex, and while every dialogue option is within the same realm enough, it's within reason to believe that they could all come from the same character, there are major choices that we make that affect a relationship with Ren, and we don't know how the Alex from before would have made those choices. Alex in this game is a decision maker. She's headstrong and she wants to lead the group to safety, but maybe the Alex from before is an enabler who lets Ren get away with a lot of poor behavior, and since we've taken over, it's put a rift in their friendship. Maybe she's extremely loyal to Ren for reasons we don't know, and suddenly we take over and we're like the ghost possessing her. That sounds like a really meta video game. I gotta make that someday. I'm pretty sure you can still stay friends with Ren if you look for him before Clarissa and side with him, but I'm not sure how it coincides with his relationship with Nona. Ultimately, I do think this is like the best result. Not saying Ren can't have both a relationship and a female best friend, but even before we make major decisions, Ren has a lot of control issues, and Alex, much like Mike, kind of feels trapped and wants to break free a bit. It's not crazy to think that someone wants to leave the town where a lot of people look at her and think, oh well, poor her. It's also pretty telling that Ren doesn't like Jonas right off the bat, and instead of telling Alex, hey, I've heard some not great stuff about him, he waits to use it to win an argument. So who knows how many other relationships of Alex's that he's done this with. Outside of a few casual name drops, they hardly mention any other friends of theirs. This was a night that meant so much to Ren, and still no one else showed up except for Alex, a complete stranger, and 2 people who don't like him. Well, Nona likes him now. This ends up being our final conversation with Ren for the entire game, because once we go inside the bunker, I guess Ren and Nona just stay at the top, and Alex and Jonas are the only ones who climb down to go to the cave. I guess for some reason that decision was made that we wouldn't all go in together. The game also doesn't really explain why they aren't there. I'm just assuming. Maybe I missed a piece of dialogue in all my watch-throughs and playthroughs, but they just aren't there. We see a tape machine, although this time it's real. It's not a loop. And as we get ready to open the door to the cave, the tape machine lures Jonas away, playing a song that he keeps on hearing that reminds him of his mother. Jonas says he can hear a voice, but we can't hear it, and Alex can't really hear it.
It's my mom. That's her voice in the static. You can hear that, right? I mean, I know you don't know what she sounded like, but you can hear that. The voice, right?
I can kinda hear it.
But Jonas is convinced that this voice is his mother trying to talk to him. Time goes all screwy, and before we know it, Jonas is gone. Now, there's a couple theories about this online, and there's one that I love so much that in my head, this is the only possible explanation for it. I know gameplay-wise, they just wanted to have the option to have Alex either be by herself or have Alex with Jonas, but many people have speculated that what Jonas was hearing was actually his mother's voice, and that his mother was somehow connecting to him from the other side, much like we've done with Mike, in order to save him from this final confrontation, to pull him away, to make sure that whatever happens to Alex just happens to Alex and not him. Where Jonas ends up, we never find out, but I don't know, I really like this theory. It just makes sense to me. Michael gets to talk to Alex, why can't Jonas's mom reach out to him too? Alex enters the cave where it all started, where the ghosts, still using Clarissa, give us some idle chatter about how they are now one with nothingness, and it's scary and they don't want to do that. We open up the tear again like a tear within a tear, and Alex finds herself a part of the same darkness. We eventually find the entirety of the submarine deep underwater, and the moment it explodes. Talking to the ghosts again via the Clarissa method, the ghosts tell us the ultimate truth.
You've come to close the hole, right, though? Well, you're gonna find out it's not that simple. The horses have already left the barn.
Or you could just, leave. You know, there's still time to not be complete monsters about this and do the right thing here.
The right thing? Oh, I'm sure it's very easy for someone like you to dictate terms when you've never really been challenged. God, you're so spoiled.
You don't even know the cost of things. Closing the hole with your stupid toy.
We'll spare your friends from our bloom, sure. But we'll seal you up in here with us. You'll die with us, again and again.
We get one last chance to make the deal with Clarissa, which I opt out of because I'm a good person or something. And the ghosts tell us that they feel forgotten about, that the monuments are more of the loss of soldiers on home territory than it is about them personally. Alex can mention Maggie and Maggie losing her friend when they were trying to help, and we can also mention Henry to try to appeal to their human side. Henry, you might ask, who the heck is Henry? I was also confused as to where the name Henry came from. Where on earth did Alex pull this from? Well, remember how I told you that out of the 12 letters that Maggie leaves behind, I only found one? The one singular letter that I accidentally collected? Well, turns out that's a story about Henry, and I think that's the coolest thing ever, and if I had time or desire to put up with the walking mechanic in this game, I would love to 100% go through this and just see what the other dialogue options are depending on what letters you find. Even though you can't have too many options, so I'm assuming some override the others, but still, I think that's super cool that it actually gives you a little bit of a reward. just for finding all the collectibles, or finding at least one collectible, even if it's not the coolest, biggest reward. That's just a cool little piece of dialogue there. We try to appeal to the ghost's humanity. They don't remember anything about themselves. The only thing that lasts is their anger. And suddenly, we're back in control of Alex. But we're at the water with the tent. And our reflection is talking. It's looking for Jonas. It's the other side of the scene. But this time, we're the reflection. We have our choice of options. Michael should break up with Clarissa. Michael should stay, or don't tell him what to do. Now, you don't have to make the same choice as you did before. Back to the mirror in Fort Milner, the one with the username, let Jonas talk to his mom. Back in Maggie's house, should Michael go to school? I do really want to talk about these scenes because I really, really like them and they blew my mind, but there's one tiny thing I don't love about them, but we will loop back, like a time loop. Not pun not intended. That wasn't a pun, but we'll loop back in a second and you'll see why. We're back at our house in some sort of vision and we go upstairs to find Michael. He's preparing for graduation and he has to deliver a speech, and he's also got a scholarship opportunity to the state school. But he doesn't love it because he thinks it'll keep him trapped at home. And he tells you that him and Clarissa are talking about getting an apartment and going off into the world and doing their own thing. Their relationship is obviously a lot more serious, and Michael's into the idea, but he wants your blessing first. And you can tell him that he should go or that he should stay. Okay, let's go back, because this is a choice that you make in this game, and I really wish it wasn't. The first time you get this choice is when you walk by the campfire the first time to go see Ren. The second time is a few minutes ago, as you, the reflection, but now you actually have to make the choice. So this is the third time that you're actually choosing this option. Do you tell Michael to go with Clarissa, or do you tell him to stay? What if, without knowing the context, the game held you to your first choice? You had no choice after that, so whatever you told Michael the first time, you have to tell him this time. Likewise, the Jonas and his mom thing never come up again. When the moment is actually happening, you may not even realize that that is Jonas trying to talk to his mom. And when we get this flashback when we're the reflection, that moment's already happened. So it makes that decision not feel as heavy because it's already happened. So as the reflection, you can just say the choice that you've already made. But imagine if when you made the choice the first time, you just had to stick with it. You did not know the context whatsoever. And then maybe you hated the decision you made with proper context, but it was too late. Now, I didn't write the game. I don't know if this was considered. And in a game where all you can do is make choices, I can see why they wanted to give you this last one, because they want to give it to you with context. But man, doesn't it give you Mass Effect 3 ending vibes? I would have loved nothing more than to be devastated by a choice that in the moment sounds like the right one, but ends up being the wrong one, because I didn't know what the choice I was making was. Likewise, with staying with Clarissa and Jonas's mom, those decisions have already been made beforehand. I would assume that this scene plays out a little bit different if he's not with Clarissa. Like if you say don't stay with Clarissa, maybe he doesn't stay with her. But this is the only one that really feels like it has that big impact, and I just wish that they didn't give you so many opportunities to change your mind.
Alex, just get good friends, okay? And when you're with those friends, just say yes to everything. And keep away from boys when you talk to them, it feels like you're performing. But also, stay away from girls who look you in the eye for too long. And match every beer with a water. And take classes outside of school.
Michael, what's this for? What are you doing?
This is a just-in-case package, okay? Just in case I'm not around. And I love you, and you're amazing, and that's it. So...
I love you too.
But soon, I shall be so I cannot remember any but the things that never happened.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, she's waking up.
Is she alright?
Are we in ghost heaven?
I think that's just called heaven, sweetheart.
But no, we're not.
Yeah, okay. The important thing is whatever you did in the cave, it worked. The tear, the hole, it's fixed. The ghosts are gone. We're going home.
Alex talks about seeing Michael again. Clarissa mentions she saw her older sister, but doesn't mention if her older sister is dead or not, so I'm not sure where that was going, but if her older sister has also died, then that's a lot of loss for her at a young age. The group makes a pact and Ren gets his moment. They have all decided they will never talk about this with anyone ever again outside the group. This is the thing that will bond them for a lifetime. And then they all start talking about prom, and Alex doesn't really want to go, but Clarissa asks Alex to go with her and Nona. So they decide as a group to take one last photo together on the boat to commemorate surviving the night. Alex gives us the rundown, and this is where you can see your choices pan out. In my playthrough, Ren and Nona got together, but they can also not. Again, I'm not really sure what factors into that. Clarissa obviously survived, you didn't sacrifice her. And while they don't become friends, they loosely stay in touch. Even if you save Clarissa, you can potentially create an even larger rift between the two, resulting in her leaving and she pretty much never talks to anyone again. Jonas and I became close and bonded as step-siblings. I imagine this has to be the most common one. I find it very hard to believe that someone would just alienate Jonas the whole time. And if that's the case, then after you move out, you hardly ever see each other.
But anyways, well, if it matters, I'm
taking some time off.
Just to, I don't know, readjust my priorities, figure out what I want to do. But anyways, what time is it? Yeah, sorry, I gotta run or I'll miss the ferry. Ren's dragging me out to Edwards Island for that yearly beach party thing, and I have to pick up what's-his-name Jonas, too. I hope he's not weird or mean or something. Whatever, I'm sure it'll be fun. It's something to do, right?
And that right there is the moment that Oxenfree became my favorite narrative choice game of all time. They didn't make it out. They lost. It didn't work. And they are now trapped in an endless time loop, doomed to live out their day on the island over and over and over again. The signs were there. Maggie said you had to go inside the tear. The ghosts themselves say someone had to close it from the inside. And thus Alex has unknowingly closed the tear to stop the horror of the ghosts and trapped all of her friends in a permanent hell. But that's not even everything. Because this rabbit hole goes deeper. Remember that last choice? The one I made such a big fuss about when I think it should have been forced, rather than based on your earlier choice? Well, obviously telling Michael to leave is the right thing to do, right? It's what he wants and you want him to be happy. But what if you tell him to stay? What if it's not a flashback, but you're actually in the past and what you say makes a difference? Because if you go into that moment, the last scene of the game, and you tell Michael to stay, well, that means you don't go to the lake and swim one last time before he leaves. So if you tell Michael to stay, Michael doesn't drown. You wake up on the boat with him, and he remembers the night. Not just confused, not just, hey, this is a great party or whatever. Everything you experience with Jonas by your side now happened with Michael. He references everything that happens. The ghosts, everything still happens. Michael was with you through the fort, through the tears. Jonas is still here. Instead of being invited by Alex as her stepbrother, Ren decided to befriend him from school when Jonas was nice to him. This means there are even more endings to the game because you can bring Michael back, but sacrifice Clarissa still, meaning no one but you will remember her. Her memory, her being is erased forever. Or you can bring Michael back and Clarissa lives and they stay together. Or if you told Michael for them not to stay together, then they will both survive and not stay together. Now, because the game is on Netflix, it's not connected to Steam in any way. So you can't look at the graphs to see what other players chose, unfortunately. But I kind of like that because it's kind of cool to not even know there are other options when you're first playing. But also, it doesn't matter. None of it matters because no matter what you do, the loop is going to start over again. You'll start from the beginning. Michael is gone. Jonas is your brand new stepbrother. and you arrive on the island all over again. Except there is a new game plus. But if you choose to actually play through the time loop, there is a bunch of new little things that acknowledge the loop. Sometimes Alex or sometimes other characters will actually acknowledge the fact that they're in a loop, and little things will pop up that won't pop up in your original playthrough. I don't know all the little secrets, and the thing is they're not super well documented. No one's really gone through and looked at every single thing, which I think is really cool because now there's so much more opportunity to explore. If you do all the right steps, there is a more secret ending than bringing Mike back. At 7 p.m., shortly before the ferry takes off, Alex, Ren, and Jonas are sitting outside of a store. When Alex turns on her radio, she will hear her own voice saying not to go to the island. And Ren and Jonas and Alex decide it's too late to catch the last boat. They order a pizza and they stay home. They never go to the island, and thus the loop never happens. It's broken. At least that's the general idea, although most people speculate that because there still has to be a version of Alex to go to the island, that in one alternate universe, Alex and her friends don't go, but in every other one, they do. The fact that a game like this that's 4 hours of too much walking, really great dialogue, in a game where you can solve the mystery pretty early on, gives you a legitimate incentive to play the game 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 more times just to see all these endings, knowing very well you're just going to end up in the loop again. That's incredible. There's apparently even more secret endings that there's not a ton of information on, like there's one where Jonas and Nona get together. Information seems kind of vague around it, and that's awesome. Don't spill all the secrets, especially in a game like this. Oxenfree takes about 4 hours to beat, but if you go to the Steam page and look at the reviews, you'll start to notice something. 24 hours played, 32 hours played, 15 hours played. A lot of people played this game more than once. Oxenfree is an incredible narrative experience, and when you factor in that this game came out in 2016, right in the middle of the Telltale Walking Dead series, a year after Life is Strange, it's impressive. Heck, this game would be impressive if it came out today. There's no rust on here whatsoever. Even the dialogue doesn't sound super dated, which is impressive because in Life is Strange, the dialogue sounded dated before the game even came out. So much of the narrative relies on the characters, and they all had stellar voice acting performances. Alex is played by Erin Yvette, who has a long list of credits to her name, including Snow White and The Wolf Among Us. Gavin Hammond as the voice of Jonas, who also voiced Kenny in the Walking Dead game. Brittany Johnson as Nona, who most will recognize as Angel from the Borderlands series. Avital Ash as Clarissa, whose voice I recognized immediately since she's married to Amir Blumenfeld from Jake and Amir, and I listened to those guys my whole life. And Aaron Kubin as the voice of Ren, who for the life of me, I cannot understand why he hasn't had like 600 jobs since then. Seriously, he nails the desperation and neediness in Ren's voice perfectly every single line. Aaron, one day, if I ever make a video game, I'm putting you in it, I promise. But the characters are also great, and they differ from each other in good and definable ways. They all feel like they can hate each other 1 minute, get into some needlessly petty drama, and then immediately make a sarcastic comment or joke to diffuse the situation, because that's just what kids do. Alex's personality stays pretty consistent regardless of the big options. She's pretty steadfast, and she's not afraid to take action or go on an adventure to save people. Really, with Alex, what you control is her relationships to others, whether she becomes close with Jonas, if she hates Clarissa or tries to mend the bridge, if she's loyal to Ren, or he gives her a speech about their friendship, and you can even decide if she needs to move on from Mike or change the past to bring him back. But Alex is also really likable. You can tell she's good at winning people over. She knows what she believes in, and she knows the difference between right and wrong. Clarissa is the Darth Vader of Oxenfree. She starts off as this very evil character, but as you dig deeper into the backstory, you learn her story is more tragic than anything. She and Mike were ready to commit to each other, to make huge steps in their relationship, unless you went in the past and as Alex and told him not to. And Mike's love for his sister and desire to have a final send-off with her ultimately costs him his life. And she misplaces that blame onto Alex because sometimes when a tragedy occurs and there's no one to blame, it's just easier that way. And she can never truly be won over. There's no ending where they become best friends, but she can let go of the anger and the hatred and the hurt and at least move to a more neutral stance. She's a deeply hurt person, and sometimes hurt people can come together and mend one another, and sometimes the best thing for them to do is just to go their own way. Nona is pretty timid. She doesn't make a lot of decisions for herself outside of, do I date this guy or not? And she usually relies on others, clinging to Clarissa quite often. And at one point, Clarissa even describes her as a lost puppy, but Nona seems to know that's her role in their friendship and doesn't really mind. I think my biggest complaint about the game is that Nona just feels so insignificant compared to the others. I know they were trying to go for a shy girl who maybe comes out of her shell a little bit, either by asking Alex to her party or dating Ren despite what Clarissa would want, but I don't think you really spend enough time with her in order to see that come to fruition. I do wonder if there was going to be a third location where you go and save Nona too, or maybe it was cut for time, or maybe never considered seriously at all. I would have personally enjoyed it even if it meant extending the walking time a little bit more, only because it felt like she just deserved a little bit more. Jonas is the guy trying to make up for past mistakes. He's got a bad reputation, but at least for the first half of the game, he believes he has a clean slate to start over new. And when it gets revealed that he has a rocky past, he owns up to it. He wants to prove that he can grow from his past. That the Jonas that went to juvie is not the Jonas of today. And yes, sometimes it can cause him to be overprotective, and if you hate that, you can tell him, but you can also just tell him no and still be nice about it. Jonas and Alex's relationship definitely progresses the most out of any two in this game, and it's why choosing him to go to Main Street for me was such an easy option, and I wish it was a little bit harder. But he's your sidekick, he's your ride or die, and I think the game knows this, which is why by the third time you're walking around, they don't even give you the choice. He's the guy you want with you. Ren is a hopeless romantic. He wants to be friends with people and have experiences like the movies, but when he forces that dynamic, he tends to alienate people more than anything, and you can tell he's not the most popular person in the world. He didn't even know people weren't showing up to the party until he already got there. No one even bothered to tell him they weren't coming. He truly does care for Alex and many others, but he also doesn't like it when he feels like his spot in people's lives are threatened. And that causes the rift between him and Jonas. Ultimately, the two can stay cordial, but I can definitely picture the Ren from my timeline getting mad that Alex hangs out with other people and not exclusively him, while he's in a relationship with Nona, basically wanting the best of both worlds. I also worry that if he does end up with Nona, maybe he comes a little bit possessive and a little jealous, and no one wants to see that. I do like the ghost storyline. It's introduced subtly enough as lore to the island, and maybe the game is so short that it doesn't give you a lot of options for anyone else. There's no real fake out as to what can happen. I did initially think maybe the ghost was going to be Mike or Maggie Adler, but I like the idea that these officers who were just in some freak nuclear reactor accident have just become lingering spirits, doing anything they can to leave and accidentally losing all humanity in the process. Likewise, Maggie Adler starts as a throwaway old lady, just a name to throw out there, but she kind of becomes a hero of the game. She has researched as much as possible to free these ghosts or anyone possessed by them, and it's with that information that the kids break free. Or at least we hope. And also, it's a bunch of teens going to a stranded, deserted island for a few days before the end of high school. Of course it's going to be ghosts. And that's okay. There's enough twists and turns in the last 2 or 3 minutes of this game alone that if players get that far, they get rewarded for seeing it. Not everything needs a big plot twist every 7 seconds, and although this game has enough to keep you interested, and the final line is the biggest one and the best one by far, I do worry some people knew it was going to be the ghost right away and lost interest. But I hope most people played it out because it is only 4 hours. Oxenfree is the golden goose in the Netflix library, a game that is normally $12.99 Canadian on Steam, but sometimes goes on sale for $2.50. It's a great game that even a non-gamer can play. Seriously, if you're tired of the same old movies and shows on date night, and maybe you have a significant other who doesn't necessarily play games, but you can convince them to watch you play a game, get them to play this or watch it with you. This could be a great way to introduce someone to interactive narratives, and once you make that first step, there's no telling where you can go from there. It's also what I want to see more of on Netflix. I don't mind a lot of the nostalgia stuff, but what I really want to see is good, compelling, interactive narrative. Because I think that's a large part of the future. We have these conversations a lot about, is it a game? Is it an interactive experience? And I don't care. I just want to be told a good story, and that's exactly what I got. I really liked Oxenfree 2 as well, although I can see why some people were iffy on it. I think overall you're missing the surprise factor of the first one. You're going in with expectations, but rather you kind of know what to expect. I'm not going to do a full breakdown, but I do want to give my thoughts on it. This is your warning now. This next section will only make sense to people who have already played Oxenfree 2. I'm not doing any plot summary stuff. If you've watched this far and you have not played the first one, you should seriously go play number 1, but then also play number 2 completely unspoiled. Mechanically, it works exactly the same except for one minor difference, and the storytelling is just as good. So skip ahead if you need to for my closing thoughts, but here are my thoughts on Oxenfree 2. Riley is an okay character. I do think she's a little bit of a step down from Alex, but she's full of mystery, and it's not in a way that's weird or forced against the player. She's obviously hiding a lot of things and coming to terms with them, so it makes sense that she's not just talking about it right off the bat. And you can choose to keep all of that secret too. You can play really cold in this game. Being vulnerable is a choice. And I know a lot of people didn't like Jacob, but honestly, I know a lot of people like Jacob, and as much as sometimes they can annoy you and rub you the wrong way, they are the best well-intentioned people you can meet. I do think the whole, oh yeah, I used to plant letters for Maggie Adler around when I was a kid thing was a little shoehorned though. That felt a little bit forced. I really like the dynamic between Riley and Jacob, and I just think having one relationship to focus on really lets it grow and flourish in a unique way. And I love the fact that Jacob is so damn awkward and just has to fill every moment he can with some random conversation, but they all add up very subtly in how your relationship with him grows. And, you know, nothing is off limits when you're trying to fill silence. I like the stuff with the cult as well. I think it makes sense, and it's kind of the only direction you can go with this kind of thing. We're officially in a universe where ghosts are real and interact with humans in definable ways. So naturally, people who have had more experiences with it would come together, and I especially love the children who are the more vulnerable of the group being the one to really try to take risks with it. All the relationships and stuff on the radios are fun. It gives me Firewatch vibes because you grow so many connections and relationships with these people and you know you're never going to meet them. The only downside is that I was checking my radio like every 5 minutes, and it was a bit excessive because I just didn't want to miss anything. And there's so many cool little side quests and things to do that the first game just didn't have, which give this one a different feel. It does feel like an evolution, like they were trying to step it up a bit, and while admittedly it was in a way I didn't expect, I didn't hate it. It wasn't necessarily something I loved. And the nice thing about side quests is that I did some and not the others. I could just ignore what I didn't want to do. There are so many different ways the game can play out, especially with the radio voices, Evelyn going home or not, saving Shelly's life by telling her to stay inside, Nick going through the portal or not, helping Hank the ghost hunter by doing all that time travel stuff. Now, the two things I really want to talk about here are, of course, the ending, but also the big reveal. So, the big reveal, super well done. Look, you're waiting the entire game to see if they'll do it, if they'll bring back the gang from the first game. And sometimes it feels like, nah, they can't possibly do that. And other times it's like, they have to do it. There's no way they don't. It was definitely the right call to bring them back. I loved them being the villains, and I thought it was perfect for the story, because the original gang's story never got to end. It wouldn't feel right if they weren't involved somehow. And they're mean. Alex is like mean and aggressive. She's the villain, and it's perfect because it's just like the Sunken in the first game. She's in this endless void where she's lost who she is, and we get to actually see that because we know what she was like before. Going to the island was also a great scene. I left Jacob behind. I didn't want him to get caught up in all the nonsense. And getting to sit there and chat with Alex, we get to see a little bit of our old Alex. She's holding on to the little bits of humanity she has left. She's worried about how Mike would feel if he were to see what she's done. And she talks about the void in such a great way because it makes you understand that sometimes it can be the perfect place and sometimes it's the eternal hell you expect it to be. But she wants to feel things, the ups and downs, the sadness and the happy, the good and the bad. The last section of the game is so trippy, but in a good way. It's a little too long if I'm honest, but maybe that's just because I got stuck at things a little bit. But I loved the way it resolved, especially with that conversation with adult Rex. I love the way they presented Rex the entire game. They're never too clear on what's going on, and they shouldn't be. Give me some cool vague ghosts over explained ghosts any day. The ending was legitimately one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in a game, pretty much ever. And boy, am I glad Jacob didn't come with me, but I think that would have made things even harder. At the end, you have to choose who stays behind, and what I absolutely love is that if you bring Jacob along with you, then Jacob might actually volunteer to stay if you're mean to him the whole night. But if you're nice to him, if you're good to him, if you treat him like a friend, as I suspect most people would, he begins to feel like his life has value and he won't do it. I think that's such an incredible decision for the writers to make. By doing the right thing and by being a good person and uplifting someone else, you completely shut the door on one of your options. And it's not too dissimilar from what they did with Mike. Telling Mike to leave, the thing that he wants to do, gets him killed. Telling Mike to stay, the thing he doesn't want to do, lets him live. The choice that you have is you or Olivia to stay in the void. Olivia, desperately wanting to see her parents again, feels like such a natural choice. She can be with them forever. We also heard Alex talk not that long ago about how it's kind of an imperfect perfection. And Olivia is just a kid who hasn't really experienced life yet. So to condemn her to this fate, it almost seems cruel even if it's what she wants. On the other hand, Alex tells you that she's seen the future and that you and Rex will eventually get to a point where the relationship is severed forever. So you have the incentive to not go forward. Riley really doesn't have a lot of relationships outside of what we've seen tonight, which is a very broken one with her father. Alex also admits that she's hesitant to keep Olivia there, which was the original idea behind the whole plan anyways. So now Olivia feels betrayed, but you have to make the decision. She wants it so badly, but she's so young. She wants to be with her parents, but it's so hard because, you know, losing your parents isn't just a small thing. So you want her to be able to see her parents again, but then there's so much other life that she'll never get to experience. And it feels like a temporary mercy. But also maybe it's what she wants, so maybe I'm just giving her the best thing. Even just thinking about it right now, I'm getting anxiety. Ultimately, I chose to stay. It just made sense to me. Olivia has been through tragic loss, but there's just so much life for her to live, and I couldn't fathom taking that away from her. Riley to me had the vibes of someone who will do the right thing without a thank you, like she'd be willing to sacrifice herself for what is really just a kid. And so that's what I chose. Even if Jacob was with me, I wouldn't have even considered him for a moment. In the end, we saved the kid, we saved the old gang, but in an unexpected twist, the reality we get stuck in, the loop, the voice of nothingness, we end up not being alone. I guess because Riley was pregnant, we get to be with Rex, a young version of this kid filled with passion and adventure and love for his mom and a thirst for knowledge. A world where things never get bad, like Alex said. Riley had an awful relationship with her dad, and now she has a relationship with her kid pretty much forevermore. But it still feels bittersweet. There's no happy ending, and I adore stories like this. The hero sacrifice cannot be without actual sacrifice, and there should never be a best answer. The ending of Oxenfree 2 is some of the best shades of gray multiple choice ending I've ever experienced in a game, even more than the original Life is Strange in my opinion. And with Rex at the end like that, I mean, come on.
Rex, I love you.
Oh, I asked you about Black Beauty because I actually just skipped to the end. I can't help myself. I always just want to know where things are going, you know? You read it, right? Maybe you remember? But it looked like the horse just ended up right back where she started? Like the last line is practically, my troubles are all over and I am at home.
Well, the sentiment certainly sounds nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Oh, and, Mom? I love you too.
Surprisingly, only 25% of people picked Riley. I'm assuming the large portion went to Olivia, which I'm not shocked about, but even in a game like this, having that much of a divide is pretty good, because it means there's no easy answer. Or maybe picking Olivia is the easier answer, and picking Riley is the more difficult one. This is definitely a game I'm going to replay in a few years once I've forgotten as much as I possibly can. I don't know if you can do an Oxenfree 3, and I think if you do, I think you have to separate these characters entirely, because we're a few choices too deep in now, but man, I hope they keep making narrative games like this, because I just adore it. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, since most people probably didn't watch this section, let's wrap this video up. The Netflix browser games are certainly an odd collection, but because there's fewer games than something like, say, YouTube Playables, it's a little bit easier to look at them as a whole. Some of these games didn't need to be here, and I think they're just not Netflix's target audience. As opposed to YouTube with the Playables, I picture Netflix's audience to be a little bit older. It's where you can find that content that isn't afraid to swear or say edgy words because of demonetization, or show some skin, or a lot of people dying. So factoring that in, games like Gem Mayhem, Rocket, Underwatermelon, Fruit Merge, they're just not something I think that really fits. Story Warriors is a great game for perhaps new English speakers or children, but I'm not sure if I could ever imagine a world where a parent would open up their Netflix, not on Netflix Kids, on their computer and say, "Here kiddo, play Story Warriors Fairy Tales" without supervision. And even if they would, there are just better games out there for your kid to be playing anyways. Link Twin, Reigns, and Reigns 3 Kingdoms are all games that would probably be better served as mobile games. I'm pretty sure they're all mobile games anyways. I liked them for different reasons, and of course, if you're looking at these games saying, well, they're here and maybe they were cheap to acquire, so whatever, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're looking to give people a reason to go to the Netflix website to play a game, perhaps have someone say, hey, you know, we weren't sure if we would get Netflix this month, but there's some cool games on there, so we get more value. I don't think these games are going to push the needle for anyone. The three games that I think target the perfect audience are The Almost Gone, Infernax, and Oxenfree. The Almost Gone is a point-and-click puzzle game with amazing story integration. It feels very new age, something you wouldn't see with this heavy of a theme, say 20 years ago. Visually, it looks great. Tonally, it's very dark, and some gameplay parts can certainly be frustrating, but overall, it's one of those games I would label as an experience. I wouldn't say you necessarily have fun playing it unless you have a very warped sense of humor, but I think it's a pretty good mix of challenge, and it will almost certainly trigger some sort of emotional response in you. Infernax plays perfectly into the nostalgic side of Netflix. Anyone a few years older than me, in their mid to low 30s, even up, grew up playing these NES side-scrolling games. And not only is an Infernax a great tribute to that era of games, it's also modernized. It has save points, which while I much prefer to save wherever I want, at least it lets you save somewhat frequently. It lets you grind, it has level ups, it has choices, multiple endings, side quests. It is modernized in all the right places without losing that old school side-scrolling charm. And it's replayable, which people from that generation definitely have an appreciation for. There's always a lot of people who like to go online and say they just don't make games like this anymore, but truthfully they do. You just have to go looking for them, and this could be a good gateway for a lot of gamers not realizing people are still making side-scrolling games that look like this. Is it the perfect S-tier game for this genre? I can't really say because I don't play a lot of these games, but people who have played this game seem to have a very real deep appreciation for it. And considering I had fun and I didn't pay any extra for it, and that there is a part of me that kind of wants to go back and play it more, I think that's a success. Oxenfree is the perfect direction for this platform. Narrative-based games that are approachable to people who don't necessarily play games are the exact people that Netflix should be targeting, in my opinion. There are tons of walking simulator games out there where the majority of it is just being taken through a story. It's interactive enough that you get emotionally invested, you feel like you're in control to some degree, but really it's just another way to deliver an experience and adventure. Netflix modernly is known for delivering high quality original content more than anything. I remember a time when Netflix originals had like 4 shows, and now it's a full Wikipedia's articles worth. That's not to say the quality has always been super high and consistent, but there's still a lot of good stuff on there. If Netflix leaned into Netflix games as another way to experience a story, and they looked for more of these 4 to 5 hour experiences, or even made their own, I think it could open up a ton of possibilities. I'm not saying they need games the length or density of a Life is Strange or The Walking Dead, but just a game like Firewatch or Road 96 or Lake or What Remains of Edith Finch, these narrative games that just give you a little bit of something. With YouTube playables, YouTube and gaming have gone hand in hand almost since the beginning. Gaming on YouTube was probably one of the first things to really blow up after vlogs and sketches. And to this day, a lot of titans on the YouTube scene got their start in the gaming sphere. Netflix is for people who don't necessarily want to play games, but watch a show or a movie. Not saying you can't do both, but appealing to the hardcore gamer on Netflix seems like a mistake, because the hardcore gamers are playing a game while watching something on Netflix or YouTube on their second monitor, instead of playing a game on Netflix. So I think appealing to the more casual side of gamers is the best decision. Oxenfree isn't mechanically intensive. It delivers a really solid story with all the right tropes to feel familiar, but not so cliche that you predict how everything will go. And overall, I think this is the best kind of game to be on Netflix. Netflix could take some of the writers who make Netflix originals, or better yet, hire game writers who know how to write for this medium, and get them into interactive narratives. Open up a whole new world to storytellers, and open up an even bigger world to people who have only ever consumed traditional storytelling mediums. All it takes is one game to get people hooked and interested. Of course, during this video, they removed a bunch of games. We now know that the Reigns games, along with The Almost Gone and Infernax, are all gone from the platform with no explanation. And while I think Centipede and Cavern of Mars are the right direction for that nostalgic taste, they don't come anywhere close to replacing the value of the other games lost. While it is in beta, I don't think Netflix has done a fantastic job at explaining these games. Words like arcade, simulation, puzzle don't really mean anything to non-gamers, and you can only see those tags if you hover over the game. Oxenfree, I guess, is available on your TV as well with the Netflix controller, and there's this weird little live action trailer thing where if you only watch for a few seconds, this definitely looks like it's going to be some sort of 1v1 couch game. I know it's like that with any Netflix show. You see a title and a picture, but generally you can at least gather some sort of genre and make expectations on a show so that you can kind of judge a book by its cover, or at least see which celebrity's in it, because star power does a lot of that pull too. These titles don't really tell you anything about the games. It's kind of a reoccurring problem with games in general. It's why as a kid you always had to flip around the back and read a paragraph and see game screenshots first. There's no indication on this list that Oxenfree is probably the biggest gem here. A game like Oxenfree looks totally unassuming from the little link they give you, and then with that trailer that focuses more on how you play than the game itself, I feel like a lot of people are going to miss this or not watch this trailer long enough. Overall, I think we can all agree that Netflix is a pretty weird market to try and get into the gaming sphere, and with this recent news of their AAA studio shutting down, I don't really know where it goes. But I understand it. Everyone else is doing it, and I suspect it won't be long until we get the X Games on Twitter, which thankfully there's no major events with that name, so Elon won't get in any trouble. I think if they're more careful with their game selections, focus more on quality, on quantity, focus more on narrative efforts than whatever they can get their hands on or cute little puzzle games, add a little bit of that nostalgia factor in with games that look like they could be 30 years old, and I think you could have something that more or less is an extension of what Netflix already is. Something where you can sign on, play a game, and expect to get a high quality story. It makes me excited to see that possibility, but I also don't know if that's the route they plan to take. So as for the question, are the browser games on Netflix worth the cost? At the beginning, I said absolutely, and monetarily that is still correct. Now, I'm not sure. Even at a premium $20.99 Canadian a month, maybe it was. Infernax and Oxenfree are pretty much worth more than that alone, even if you skip all the other games. But with Infernax gone and Oxenfree being $13 on its own, I don't think I would get a Netflix subscription just to play these other games. For me, the big three were Infernax, the almost gone, and Oxenfree, and with two of those gone now, I'm less convinced that it's worth it. Almost everything else has a version that you can find for free anyways. The removal of the games has me nervous that there's no solid direction for Netflix to go with browser games. I imagine Oxenfree will probably be a staple with Night School Studio being acquired by Netflix and with them publishing the sequel, but losing two really solid unique games and then gaining some others that really aren't worth more than a 5-minute glance, I don't know. I don't know what direction they're headed or if they even know what direction they're headed, and I worry about the smaller studios being acquired by Netflix that will inevitably end up in the crossfire. They will unfortunately be the ones to pay if things go wrong. With the Netflix mobile games being such a large pool of games with no real connection, and the browser games looking more or less the same so far, the question is, what is the future? Will we see a slow fizzle and burnout, and is it soon to be a forgotten addition? Or is the creation of Oxenfree 2 under the Netflix name a sign of things to come? Only time will tell, but with recent developments, I think one thing is for sure. I'm not confident Netflix knows exactly what they're doing yet either.